asteroid coming towards Earth and you're there, you can actually stop it. I mean, that's kind of fantastic.
NASA is crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid.
What? You think science fiction, but this is real. Never in my life would I have thought I would take a couple $100 million spacecraft and crash it into an asteroid. My name is Michelle Chen.
I'm Lena Adams.
My name is Kelly Fast.
I'm Andy Rifkin.
I'm Justina Sorovitz, and I help tell the story of the DART mission.
I'm a planetary defender.
And I study how the orbits of asteroids change after we hit them with spacecraft.
My job was primarily to make sure all the systems on the spacecraft work together.
The DART mission is NASA's first test of a planetary defense technique called kinetic impactor. Analyses get done to the precision that they are required to get done.
Now, is it just the ground-based telescopes, or do you deal with any of the data that will come from the satellite itself? I'll
help deal with some of the data from the satellite as it's coming in. It's going to take images of the surface of Dimorphos. We need to look at the geology of Dimorphos. We need to see if we hit a giant rock or more of a flat piece. So I'll be helping out with that piece, but most of my focus is on the ground-based telescopes and any space-based telescopes we get data from.
Now, can you tell me why we're going to this Didymos system rather than hitting just a asteroid that, will orbit around Earth and the Sun?
Absolutely. It's a great question. Asteroids and the Earth, actually, both move around the Sun at something like 20 miles a second. We think that we only want to get...
In case there was an asteroid coming towards Earth and...
I'm Andy Rifkin.
I'm Justina Sorovitz, and I help
that is going to go and smack an asteroid.
the double asteroid redirection test.
It's just a spacecraft.
Test of a planetary defense technique called kinetic impactor.
DART is the double asteroid redirection test.
It's just a spacecraft that is going to go and smack an asteroid.
The moonlit Dimorphos, which orbits the asteroid Didymos,
and see if we can change its trajectory just a little bit.
in order to show that we can deflect incoming asteroids if we need to.
DART will only be changing the period of the orbit of Dimorphos by a tiny amount.
But in space, just a little bit is just enough to make an asteroid actually miss us.
In the event that an asteroid is discovered well ahead of time before it might impact Earth.
Behind me, you see the spacecraft.
It's really cool to see it coming together in real life.
It is fantastic to see it in real life.
To see it turn from ideas into real pieces that are gonna go into space.
The solar arrays will actually roll out to 28 feet in length.
Once the solar arrays are deployed, it's going to be the size of a school bus. As the solar array opens out, it's going to swing out in this direction. The asteroid's only 2 football fields in size.
We're flying at over 6 kilometers a second.
30 days out, we see 1 pixel on our field of view.
You can see Didymos and Dimorphos as one point of light.
About 4 hours out, our spacecraft becomes autonomous.
And then that's where everything gets really exciting.
You actually are seeing impact.
We're super excited and nervous as well.
I feel really honored and humbled to be working in an area of science that has such a broader impact, figuratively and literally.
No DART!
We believe that has a fair bit of latitude. We don't actually know the shape of Dimorphos. We don't know if we're going to get a head-on impact or a slightly glancing blow, but we believe that even a glancing blow is going to have some impact that we'll be able to measure, have an influence we can measure. But in the best case, we want to hit it dead on.
So you're going to put a little English on it.
Yeah, put a little English, yeah.
All right, well, listen, I also understand that it's this imager is based on technology that we used in a previous mission, New Horizons, the LORI instrument.
In fact, yes.
The LORI instrument.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Draco builds on the past heritage of the LORI instrument, currently flying on New Horizons. The LORI instrument, of course, is the high-resolution imager that took those beautiful images of Pluto. Yeah. Just absolutely spectacular images of Pluto. But we're building on that technology. That's an instrument built by Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. Yep. And the new version, Draco, is a new evolution where we now have improved detectors that have lower noise, so more signal to noise, so higher quality images, and a new optical system that's higher spatial resolution. So just a really incredible camera.
Real quick, will those images that it takes for navigation be sent back as well?
So there will be some images sent back until we impact, because once we impact, nothing else comes back. But keep in mind that all of that processing and the decision making is all done autonomously on board. There's no time to send images back to Earth and us make decisions and send them back.
Sure.
So all of that is done on board.
Awesome. Well, one final question. We're doing an office pool on how slow we will affect the orbit of Dimorphos. So with 9 minutes being the standard, will you take the over or the under?
Oh gosh, for me, I'm going to go over. I'm the optimist. I am an optimist. I think that we are going to hit it as dead on as we can, and I'm definitely going over 9 minutes.
I see a clear trend among the scientists, for sure. Thanks so much, Lori, for being on the show.
It's my pleasure.
Up next, Franklin has a chance to sit down with one of the DART team members and talk about the spacecraft. Let's check it out.
I'm here with Lisa Wu, part of the DART engineering team. How you doing today, Lisa?
I'm doing great.
Tell me a little bit about what you've done with DART at the APL.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm a mechanical engineer at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, and I work on DART. So one of my main responsibilities was integration and testing. I was the mechanical engineer in the clean room putting the spacecraft together. I basically helped build DART, which is so cool to say.
Well, you know, you're so excited about this. I have to let everybody know that you're just 4 years out of the University of Maryland. You're working at APL, and this is your first major mission, and you have a lot of responsibility.
If we had an asteroid on an impact with the Earth.
Back in, I think it was 2014, we had the Planetary Defense Conference in some of these things were being discussed then, and now you actually have a mission.
Here we are, yes. Yeah, we were talking about this kinetic impact concept back in those years, developing the advocacy to get the funding and the approval to do this mission, which we formally started this mission in 2017. So we've been about four and a half years getting here.
Tell us, how does the Planetary Defense Office locate near-Earth objects?
Well, we have a group of ground-based observatories that we sponsor that are searching the skies every night to try to find these asteroids. We found some 27,000 now near-Earth asteroids of all sizes, of which about 10,000 of them are.
Ram it into an asteroid, and by doing that, we change the orbit of the asteroid so that, in principle, if something were coming our way, we could move the orbit so that it was no longer coming our way.
Wow, that's a great answer. Thanks, Andy. And I actually see that we're already starting to get some questions in from our viewers. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And as a reminder, if you have a question for Andy, you can send it in using the hashtag AskNASA or by writing in the comment box of wherever you're watching today's broadcast. All right, Andy, are you ready?
I am. Let's go for it.
Our first question comes from Robert Clauderson on Facebook, who asks, Will we be able to know what the composition of Dimorphos is by looking at the light from the impact of DART?
That's a great question. We have a pretty good idea of what the composition of Didymos is, the main body. Our theories of how asteroid moons form suggest that Dimorphos should be made of the same material. When the DART impact into Dimorphos occurs, we expect there to be a lot of debris that's thrown out into space by that impact. I don't think we're going to be able to directly measure the composition of that dust, but certainly we're going to try. And then the European Hera mission will be showing up a few years after the DART impact, and they will be able to directly measure the composition of Dimorphos. So they'll be able to confirm a lot of what we've been thinking.
So it sounds like we have an idea of what it's made of, but we won't really know until we get there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We think that Didymos is made of the same kind of material as what we call ordinary chondrite meteorites. So they're very common material that falls to Earth. We think it's the same kind of composition that the asteroid Itokawa has, that the asteroid Eros has, and that the asteroid Apophis has. So it's a common material that is pretty commonly what falls to Earth.
Our next question comes from Indy Magoo on YouTube, who asks, would you try to find an object with a higher albedo so it would be easier to track?
So for those out there that are not familiar with what albedo is how reflective a surface is. So something like snow is very reflective, has a high albedo, as we say. Something like tar or a charcoal briquette has a very low albedo. It's very dark. As suggested, high albedo objects are more visible from far away. One of the things in asteroid science is we don't always get to pick what our targets are like. The targets pick that for themselves. So Didymos has an albedo we think of about 15 to 20%, so typical for rock. And Didymos has so many other great properties for carrying out DART that it's kind of, even regardless of albedo, it was clearly going to be the place to go.
Our next question comes from Viswadeep Natarajan on YouTube, who asks, what are possible options to deflect a massive-sized asteroid?
That's a great question. The answer depends a lot on how much warning time we have before we have to deflect the asteroid, and the size of the object. So DART is part of kind of an overall national strategy for dealing with asteroid impacts. One of the other pieces is doing a search to find objects that are out there that might be hazardous and find them as soon as we can. The longer the warning time we have, the more different options we have. And some of the options might be, if an object is small enough that we just say, okay, it's going to burn up in the atmosphere, we're not going to worry about it. We'll just enjoy the meteor that it makes, and maybe pick up some little pieces if they make it to the ground.
So DART is obviously testing one form of asteroid deflection technology, but it sounds like a key point for it to work is that we would need to find a potential threat early. Is that correct?
Yes, that's kind of
in case there was an asteroid.
Any
you
of
see
the
the
techniques.
spacecraft.
It's really cool to see it coming together in real life.
It is fantastic to see it in real life.
To see it turn from ideas into real pieces that are going to go into space.
Powerful tool we have in our toolbox is to use a nuclear device to detonate nearby a threatening asteroid, vaporize part of it, and deflect it that way. But we obviously want to have as many different tools in our toolbox as we can, because we're going to be faced with different scenarios, and so we want to make sure we have the right tool for the right job.
So kind of following up on how we're going to know DART will work, videographer on YouTube asks, will we measure before and after impact, or will we only look at accelerations at the moment of impact? And how will we know these measurements how will these measurements be taken?
It's another great question. A lot of great questioners out there. From the Earth, Didymos and Dimorphos are going to appear as a single point of light. We're not going to see them separate. So what we can do, and what we will do, is measure the brightness of the system as Dimorphos goes around. And from the point of view of the Earth, Dimorphos will move in front of and behind Didymos, and that will make the brightness go up and down as it does that. We've been measuring that brightness for years. People have been measuring it in some form or another probably since 2003, but we've been measuring it for this project since 2015. So we know the period of that orbit very well. After the impact, we're going to keep measuring it. We're going to keep measuring the brightness of this point of light going up and down. We're going to measure the new frequency with which the brightness changes, compare that to the pre-impact measurements, and be able to say, okay, the orbit period was 11 hours and 55 minutes before the impact. Now it's 11 hours and 45 minutes or 38 minutes or whatever it is. That gives us the information we need to know how much we changed the orbit.
Our next question comes from Alan Ranke on Facebook, who asks, what are the characteristics of the spacecraft itself?
The spacecraft is about the size of a vending machine, not counting the solar panels. So it's 2 meters by 2 meters by 2.5 meters, something like that, but a vending machine. The solar panels, which you can see in the video here, are rollout solar panels. That's one of the new technologies that's being tested out on DART. When those are fully deployed, then those are 18 meters from tip to tip, which is a little bigger than kind of the length of a typical bus. So we're going to take this spacecraft. It's several hundred kilograms in mass, I think 500 or 600 kilograms in mass, and it is going to impact Dimorphos. Dimorphos is about the size of one of the pyramids of Egypt, and it's going to impact it at something like 6.5 kilometers a second. In imperial units, if you prefer, that's something like 4 miles a second. So basically, we're firing this vending machine at one of the pyramids of Egypt very, very fast.
So kind of following up on that, how is it possible that something so small, you're saying the size of a vending machine, impacting a pyramid essentially in size, how can something so small change something so big? How can that motion and change, how can that change in space be altered?
That's part of the reason, these objects move through space something like 30 kilometers a second, so 20 miles a second. If you have enough warning time, if you have 20 years of warning, 30 years of warning, 15 years of warning, all you need to do is change that speed by a little bit, just a fraction of an inch per second, and that gives it enough time to miss the Earth entirely. It's sort of like if you can imagine if you had two trains that you knew were going to collide. If you knew it a day before, then one of the trains would only have to change its speed by a little bit and you'd be fine. If you found out 5 minutes before, then it's a very different story. If you found out 10 seconds before, then you really have to take some drastic action. So part of it is the key is finding them early so that you can just make a little change and not have to do anything too drastic.
Logan on YouTube asks, how long have you been working on DART?
I've been working on DART since very close to the beginning. I think it's a little over 10 years since, it basically was a two-page document that my colleague Andy Cheng over also at APL had come up with the idea of testing this technique on a binary system, the DA, double asteroid, part of DART. And from there, it's been kind of taking that two-page document and making it more and more, sure, more and more mature, so we could bring it to NASA, convince them that this was a good thing to do. And then, of course, the engineers doing all of their work with the hardware, putting it together, building it. That's been the last few years. So it's really, really amazing that now we're seeing this thing that started out as, again, this kind of two-page document turn into a piece of hardware that's going to sit on top of a rocket and then make its way out to the asteroids.
So Andy, I noticed that you said, the double asteroid part of DART, double asteroid redirection test, that we're going to this binary asteroid system. Can you tell me a bit about why that's important?
Absolutely. The idea of testing a kinetic impactor like DART predates DART by quite a bit. The European Space Agency was first looking into it in the early years of this century, but when they conceived of it, they imagined visiting a single asteroid and changing its orbit around the sun. So doing that, as you might imagine, is a very precise measurement that needs to be made, and their concept had a second spacecraft sitting there to make that measurement. That was more spacecraft than the Europeans wanted to devote to the problem at the time. So the idea of going to a double asteroid and watching the brightness go up and down from the Earth means that you can do it with just one spacecraft. You don't have to build two spacecraft, send two spacecraft. You can change the orbit of the moon and then measure what you did from telescopes on the Earth.
So keeping in line with DART and the launch, so Melanie on YouTube asks, I'm excited and I'm scared. What should I expect on the 23rd, 24th of November? Well, Melanie, I feel you. Excited and scared is, I think that's going around. So we're going to be launching out of Vandenberg Space Force Base, and we're going to be on a Falcon 9 rocket. We are going to launch. It's going to be kind of late at night, something like 10:20 p.m. on the West Coast, and in the early morning Wednesday on the East Coast is the plan. And then you can see the video here. DART will separate from the main booster. It's going to spend a little time getting its solar panels extended. And then we think about a half hour, 20 minutes to a half hour after the launch, it will fire the rockets to kind of get on its way toward Didymos. So we're looking forward to it, and we're excited. I think it's a crazy thing we're doing. So I think scared is not a foreign feeling, but also we're all feeling very confident. As a reminder, we're chatting with Andy Rivkin from NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test Mission. And if you'd like to ask him a question about planetary defense at NASA or the DART mission, you can send it in using the hashtag AskNASA or by writing in the comment box wherever you're watching today's broadcast. So Andy, our next question comes from Patricia Benner-Smith on Facebook, who asks, so will pieces of the asteroid break off, and will they become millions of little meteorites that might hit our satellites or even our planet? Great question, and something that is something that we've looked into and others have looked into. The expectation certainly is that when DART hits Dimorphos, that it will make debris. That debris will come off of the surface of Dimorphos. And in fact, LICIACube, which is a CubeSat that the Italian Space Agency is building, has built. It's already built. It's done. It's attached. LICIACube has for its objectives to actually take images of the debris cloud that DART makes when it impacts, because that's going to give us information about Dimorphos itself. The amount of material that is made by the DART impact is not very large. You might remember that objects are naturally hitting objects in space all the time and making meteorites. People have studied how much material from the DART impact might make its way to Earth, and the amount is minuscule. I think the report I remember seeing was maybe one extra shooting star over the course of a decade. So we are not going to do anything that's going to come to Earth. We're not going to do anything that's going to be a problem for satellites or anything like that. So speaking of LICIACube, Dan Shields on Twitter asks, once hashtag DART mission and LICIACube results are analyzed, what's next? Are there subsequent missions or targets identified, or will that come later? Sure, I'm always happy to answer, a Twitter question with my tweets.
The most direct, immediate follow-up to DART is the Hera mission, which the European Space Agency is going to be launching a few years after DART. It will arrive at the Didymos system. I should know this. I think it's 2026. And they will do direct measurements that will be useful on their own. They'll do some great science, and they'll also be doing some follow-up measurements that will help us continue to analyze DART. In terms of the Planetary Defense Office, the next mission that I think most people are expecting is a telescope mission called NEO Surveyor, which will go back to the job of trying to find asteroids out there, trying to catalog the asteroid population and understand the potentially hazard asteroids that are out there, make sure that nothing is coming our way.
So Jamie Jeans on Facebook asks, is there an asteroid coming our way? Is there an asteroid headed toward Earth?
No, but I'll say no asterisk. We are hit by material all of the time. Anytime you go out into your backyard and you see a shooting star, that is asteroidal or cometary material hitting the Earth. It's maybe the size of a sand grain. The Earth gets hit by objects the size of the chair I'm sitting in. I don't know the chair you're sitting in. I assume it's probably about the same size. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Depending on the size of your couch, we get hit by couch-sized material, again, maybe once a year. As you get larger and larger objects, they hit less and less frequently. That's, again, part of the reason that we want to send missions like the NEO Surveyor out to look for material, objects that might be large enough to worry about coming our way. We know of no objects that are large enough to cause any damage that are coming our way. So I can absolutely reassure you of that.
Well, that's good to hear. Our next question comes from Sarah on Twitter, who asks, how long will it take DART to get to the Didymos system?
Great question. DART will arrive in the end of September to the start of October in 2022. The exact date of arrival depends on the exact date of launch, but it's going to be somewhere in that last week of September to the first couple days of October. Our launch period is a long one, so a week from tomorrow is the first opportunity we have to launch. Yeah, that's crazy.
In case there was an asteroid coming towards Earth and you're there, you can actually stop it. I mean, that's kind of fantastic.
NASA is crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid.
What? You think science fiction, but this is real. Never in my life would I have thought I would take a couple $100 million spacecraft and crash it into an asteroid. My name is Michelle Chen.
I'm Lena Adams. My name is Kelly Fast.
I'm Andy Rifkin.
I'm Justina Sorovitz, and I help tell the story of the DART mission.
I'm a planetary defender.
And I study how the orbits of asteroids change after we hit them with spacecraft.
My job was primarily to make sure all the systems on the spacecraft work together.
The DART mission is NASA's first test of a planetary defense technique called kinetic impactor.
DART is the double asteroid redirection test.
It's just a spacecraft that is going to go and smack an asteroid.
The moonlit Dimorphos, which orbits the asteroid Didymos.
And see if we can change its trajectory.
Here, y'all. And as we go through this, remember, this is a NASA Spaceflight live stream. If you've got a question for us, tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight. We've got some cool software that'll pull questions. Same thing with future chats. What? With super chats, like we just got one from Musical Wolves here saying, just got to say that this mission is a smashing idea. Let's smash this. Thanks, Musical Wolves, for the super chat. So if you have a question for us, make sure you tag us. If you do a super chat, we read those out on occasion. We're just under 60 minutes from launch here. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, DART T-minus 57 minutes. And so we have almost an hour here. We'll be answering your questions and just talking about what's going on with a NASA mission where they are intentionally crashing this spacecraft into the asteroid. So give us a little bit more information about the mission here. Who wants that one, Chris or Ian?
Yeah, I'll take that. So I mean, this is a mission that is exactly what it sounds like. So DART is double asteroid redirect test, And that's because it's going to a double asteroid, and it's going to try to redirect them. And in the absolute simplest terms, DART itself, we normally think of these spacecrafts as, oh my gosh, they're outfitted with all of these major scientific experiments and sensors and everything like that, because when they get there, they have to study the system completely in depth. But that is not what DART is doing. DART is a 610 kilogram kinetic impactor, and its entire job is to slam into the asteroid moonlet Dimorphos, which is the moon of Didymos, which is the primary asteroid. And the goal of this is just to change Dimorphos's orbit around Didymos. And the way they're going to do that is the kinetic impact of DART slamming into this moon at 6.6 kilometers per second is going to change Dimorphos's orbital velocity by 1 millimeter per second. And that's an incredibly small change, and it's incredibly hard to measure usually, except the effect that this will have on its orbital period around Didymos is really easy to calculate, because the change of 1 millimeter per second will reduce the overall orbital velocity of Dimorphos, or orbital period of Dimorphos, from 11 hours 55 minutes to 11 hours and 45 minutes. And that is something that we will in some ways be able to see with ground-based telescopes and observatories that will be looking at this as the impact happens and in the months that follow. And it is also what the Hera mission and spacecraft from the European Space Agency will then go and study in depth. So DART is actually the first of 2 spacecraft that will go to this system. So DART will go and slam into it and change its characteristics of the system, and then Hera will launch in 2024 and get there in 2027 and actually study how the system changed over a prolonged period of time. And this is really important, because if we ever saw an asteroid coming at the Earth and we had enough time, exactly what we were sort of joking about earlier, oh, it's just nuke it. Like, no, that's not necessarily the best thing to do, because then you create multiple different objects that you then have to track. Even if they don't hit Earth, they could then swing back around and hit you on subsequent orbits. But if you can just hit an asteroid and nudge it slightly, a very small change in its velocity over millions and millions and millions of kilometers of space can have a pretty substantial impact on where that object is by the time it comes near Earth. So if we can just gently nudge it out of the way, great. Now we know exactly where it is, and we don't have to worry about it impacting us later on down the road. And that is sort of, in a nutshell, exactly what this mission is slated to do.
I like how you said gently nudge it, even though we're hitting it at what we said 6.2 kilometers per second.
Yeah, we're basically hitting it at what is 1 kilometer per second less than orbital velocity around Earth.
Nice.
Is what we're going to hit it. And yeah, basically that's a nudge, a love tap, if you will.
The fancy term is kinetic impactor. I like to call it a solar sucker.
Sucker
I like
punch. Well, I think one of the coolest things about this is that we may actually get pictures of this happening, because there's a little ride along, isn't there?
There is indeed. It is pronounced Licia Cube, and it is from the Italian Space Agency, and it is going to deploy from DART, and then it's going to go out in front of DART and get into position to monitor the impact and the immediate after effects of this. So we're going to get pictures. We might even get, a sequence of images that look like a video, not in real time, but we will get those, which is pretty cool. That they basically sent a camera along with it in these little CubeSats. And we talk a lot about the CubeSat revolution in terms of Earth orbit, but here are CubeSats actually doing a very vital job of allowing us to watch these events take place in real time and not have to guess, and be very up close with some detailed images.
Excellent. So let me see if we've got some questions here, because there's all sorts of, there's a couple. It's interesting. You're intentionally crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid. So a lot of times we hear about the instruments that are on board, and it's like there's this camera and this camera and a wide camera and this camera and this is infrared, and then there's this science sensor and this measures gravity, like all these different things, right? But on board, that's not really the case for DART. It's not a bunch of different sensors. It's literally just some solar panels, an engine, a camera, and a system to crash into the asteroid, right?
It is, and Ian, do you want to talk about a little bit about the solar arrays and the engine, because exactly what we just said is true, but NASA's actually using this in a pretty interesting way.
Yeah, so like we said, DART is a relatively small, relatively simple spacecraft. And actually, to add on to that, it's a very cheap mission considering it's escaping and leaving Earth. And the mission costs about $300 million compared to about $500 million, which is the usual starting cost for interplanetary spacecraft. But what you were talking about, Chris, this mission only does have one specific science instrument on board, which really isn't even a science instrument. It has the Draco camera, which it will be using to guide itself and use images from that camera to figure out where it is, where it needs to go, and guide itself right into the asteroid. But that is the only instrument on board. There is nothing else to collect science. There's no magnetometer, no other cameras. All this is a kinetic impactor, but there are several test payloads on board. The first of which is the Next C ion engine. And what that essentially is, that is a new design of ion engine that hasn't flown before. It's a derivative of an ion engine that has flown on the Dawn mission. This is an evolution of that that's designed to be better and more capable. So that will be a good tech demonstrator on here. Additionally, on the solar panels, the rollout solar arrays, this will be one of their first missions they've flown on. Not the first time they've ever flown, but one of the first times. They've initially been used on the International Space Station, and now they've been deployed on the station to generate power long term. But this will be their first use on a dedicated free-flying spacecraft. And on those solar arrays themselves, there's actually another experiment. There are a few solar cells on there that have been equipped with high-efficiency solar arrays, as well as reflectors. You can see there the silver portions are actually sort of like mirrors to reflect the sunlight onto the panels to attempt to increase their efficiency. So not only are we getting a new type of solar arrays, but we're also getting a new type of solar arrays with an experiment on them. So a lot of things happening here. But that's not all. There is also one more. But wait, there's more. There's actually a new type of high-gain antenna on here, and that is actually testing new technologies to make a cheaper and simpler high-gain antenna. And what is a high-gain antenna, you may ask? Well, a high-gain antenna is used to transmit a beam, a singular beam of data that can transmit very, very high bandwidth. So you can get a lot of data down very quickly, which is important for a very fast-moving mission like this. You want to get the data down very quickly before it, for example, hits an asteroid. So this is a really good example here of how to get data down quick, and DART is a great test platform to have all of these technologies working together.
Excellent. And here's what I'm going to do. I was actually just looking at the website from the Johns Hopkins University Advanced or Applied Physics Laboratory. I'm going to put that link into chat if you want to read more about those. That link right there, I was NASA Spaceflight, is what we were just looking at. And it's a really cool resource I found a couple days ago in terms of all the different things going on with the mission. So anyways, we are still marching towards a launch here. It's currently T-minus 47 minutes before the launch. And today's launch is an instantaneous window. We got one chance, right?
We do. 10:21:02. So, yeah, 10:21:02 local time at Vandenberg, which is 6:21:02 UTC. Yes.
Gotcha. All right. So let's see if we can't go through and grab a couple questions out of chat. I see some questions coming into the queue here. And then really quickly, Bob and Michelle Murray, thank you so much for becoming a Capcom member, the membership program there.
Oh, nice.
Actually something we've been building out a lot lately. We're adding in more sort of perks for the membership program that allows people to support us on a monthly basis. Here on YouTube, there's a little join button if you're on the web app or mobile or whatever. And you should be able to not just subscribe to the channel, which is sort of like following the channel, but if you join as a member, there's a couple different perks you can get, all the way up to including a pre-release on some videos, a members Discord where there's honestly way too many channels to read a day that you'll never be able to keep up with everything that's going on there, and a couple other perks like
21 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, as we follow pre-launch operations, we also have some cool stuff to show you along the way. Our own Kelly Fast will give a fun demonstration. There she is. She's going to help us visualize a close approach asteroid, and she's moving quick.
Look at
We'll also head into space where 2 astronauts will demonstrate.
It's cold like across all of the U.S. right now. I feel.
It snowed here today.
Oh, did it really? Wow, nice.
And then Musical Wolves says, why are they not using a Falcon Heavy? I have the answer to that.
Well, they don't need it. So Didymos and Dimorphos. So Didymos is the primary asteroid, and Dimorphos is the moon or the moonlet. So Didymos is in a orbit that brings it very close to Earth. So it goes out to about 2.8 AU astronomical units from the sun, and then it comes into basically like 1.1, 1.09. So it doesn't cross Earth's orbit, which is good, which means it's a stable asteroid, so we can do this test on it and not accidentally mess ourselves up later on down the road. But because it comes so close, and because DART is such a small spacecraft, DART only weighs 610 kilograms itself, and Lichia Cube is 14 kilograms, so 624 kilograms overall is your launch mass. And we are talking about a Falcon 9 that is capable of launching several metric tons into a geostationary transfer orbit. This payload is so incredibly small, it's comical inside of the payload fairing because there it is. Yeah, it is comically small. So that does a couple of things, right? It's a light mass payload on a very powerful.
And the reason why you hear this poll at this point in time because there's so much going on much later in the process. So they try to have the poll early so that way the team can focus on the telemetry and focus on the data coming from the rocket and really pay attention to everything that's going on leading into those last few minutes.
And we're just standing by for that NASA launch manager poll.
This is the NLM on the NLM net with our propellant loading poll, starting with NASA CE.
NASA CE is go.
SMA?
SMA is go.
SMD?
SMD is go.
NASA mission manager?
NASA MIM is go.
LSP?
LSP is go.
Team's ready to proceed in the cryo tank.
On the time lapse, by the way.
NASA teams to make sure that they're ready to go to proceed with propellant loading and launch. That's the various teams that you heard the NASA launch management pulled in to make sure that they're ready to proceed with the count.
You are, yeah.
One thing I want to point out as we look at the rocket live on the pad on an unusually clear
and then at the bottom,
night.
There's the adapter. That's a little sort of thing that it sits on at the bottom.
Which is new, actually. It's a smaller payload adapter today, specifically for smaller payloads like DART. So it's a new payload adapter that is flying today.
So when you said it was comically small, Chris, you're not wrong. Like a picture is worth 1,000 words here. DART is tiny. You could literally host multiple parties in the payload fairing with DART in there. So.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it is not the lightest, though, that a Falcon 9 has ever launched. I'm pretty sure that was Formosat 5, which was about a 550-ish kilogram Taiwanese satellite that was originally supposed to go on a Falcon 1 rocket and then ended up on a Falcon 9 out of Vandenberg. And yeah, it was 475 kilograms. So it's not the lightest the Falcon 9 has ever launched, but still comically small.
Originally,
and actually...
You go ahead, Ian. This was supposed to be like a rideshare or something, wasn't it? It wasn't supposed to launch just by itself like this. It was supposed to piggyback off some other mission originally, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Next C ion engine that Ian was talking about a bit earlier, it's not on there just to do the small little number of tests that it's now going to do. This was originally going to be dropped off in a geostationary transfer orbit, and then have to use its ion engine to very slowly spiral itself out into the correct intercept trajectory with Didymos and Dimorphos. And then when NASA put out the request for proposals for the launch vehicle for it, SpaceX came along and said, we'll do it as a dedicated mission for 69 mil out the door. And NASA went, sold, and did it as a dedicated mission because it is more efficient. It gets it there quicker. It allows the telescopes here on Earth to see it. It's just better to get it there quick. And that sort of meant that after that, the next C ion engine is still going to do these demonstrations in deep space, but it's not going to be the, oh my gosh, we have to have it to get out of Earth orbit anymore type of engine.
Cool. Well, let's see here. I think that answered that question in detail. We also had JR coming through as a launch director. Thank you so much, JR, for the support. Launch director's way up there.
Oh, Ian, you were saying something a minute ago.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about how DART is one of the lightest payloads. We're actually going to be setting a record in about 3 weeks time. That was going to beat that. So SpaceX is going to be launching IXB. I have no idea what that stands for. The thing was supposed to launch on a Pegasus rocket, but SpaceX undercut them tremendously. They bid $50 million for that launch, which is pocket change. And that IXB weighs 325 kilograms. That is as much as like a small group of people.
Yeah,
and that is going to look. It's probably about as big as a few people, and it's gonna look comical inside Falcon 9's fairing. It's funny because it could have launched on Pegasus, which is a small sat launcher. I think it's even smaller than Electron. And
Pegasus is the thing that they drop off underneath the wing of the Northrop Grumman plane.
Yeah. And
hey, it's got a name. It's called Stargazer. It's the last flying L-1011. I'd like you to show it some respect. Thank you.
Yes,
sir. I toss the ball into the air, and Jack hits it out of the park. There you go.
But yeah, so Falcon 9 outbid a small sat launcher, and they got a dedicated launch for a 300-kilogram satellite on a rocket rated to launch 28 tons into orbit. Or sorry, 23 tons.
All right. Do we have some questions here in the queue? Start going through a couple questions. We're at T-minus 38 minutes now.
I think we should, because right now at this point in the countdown, the launch director would be doing their virtual go no go poll, which is basically just the console operators click yes, I'm ready to proceed, or no, I'm not. We don't actually get to hear it ahead of the start of propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes. So yeah, let's dive into some questions here.
All right. Let's see. Here's a question from Lego Flight Cams saying, is there any other rocket capable of this mission, or is it only Falcon 9? There's a lot of rockets capable physically of the mission, but from a cost perspective, maybe not. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, most rockets flying today, with the exception of maybe like Electron and Astra's rocket, most rockets flying today could launch this payload, but it just comes down to who had the availability, who's the cheapest, and SpaceX, I guess, checked all those boxes, and NASA. Plus, NASA is Falcon 9 has been proven to be reliable by NASA, so NASA would be inclined to use Falcon 9 since it's cheap and reliable.
Excellent. But I think a lot of other rockets could do it. Now, here's a question.
Oh, yeah, Atlas and Delta could do it, certainly, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. No issue there.
They could do it. Could any of the small sat launchers do it? If this is only I don't think any of the small sat launchers can actually get this large of a spacecraft up. It's weird saying that this is a large spacecraft.
It's too large for any of the small sat launchers that are in existence right now, like Rocket Lab and Astra. They're maxing out at around the 500 to 550, 575 kilogram range, and DART itself is 610, 624 when you include the Lichia CubeSat. No, this could not have gone on any of the small sat launchers. Now, could a small sat launcher have done it? I mean, if the kinetic impact of DART itself could have been made small enough, potentially, but one of the things about this mission is, and the weird balancing act and the tricky balancing act that you have here is the mass of the spacecraft has to be just right, and the velocity that it's impacting has to be just right. So it's sort of like a weird balance of you need something heavy enough with enough mass to slam into these things to actually appreciably change their velocities enough to account for things you might not expect. So in that regard, I hate to say a definitive no, but probably not for what we needed this mission to be.
Gotcha.
I also just really quick want to shout out to Japan because we mentioned ESA and Italy as contributors to this mission as well, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency is also a contributor to this as well. So NASA, Europe, Italy, and Japan are the 4 international partners for this mission.
Excellent. Here is another question from Adrian Rivero saying, what made this mission more suited for West Coast versus Florida? So why are we going out of Vandenberg today instead of launching from the Cape?
Because Vandenberg's the best.
I'm going to mute Jack here. Let me just click on this button. And since we're having like an episode of Hee Haw here where he keeps sticking his head out a window in the side of the building, what's going on? Like, why are we flying out of Vandy instead of out of the Cape?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Ian.
I was going to say there are really like 2 main reasons. The first, and perhaps the most simple one, is it's possible. The trajectory is possible to reach from Vandenberg, but that in itself doesn't really matter. It's more that Vandenberg isn't used as often as Cape Canaveral. So at Cape Canaveral, you have to work around other SpaceX launches. You have to work around U.S. government launches, Atlas launches, Delta launches, anything else that can take up the ranges, take up the range for the day. But at Vandenberg, where you only get a handful of launches per year, it is much easier to slot in a launch such as DART. And also with DART, while it may have backup launch opportunities, its window closes in February. Its launch window is done in February. So if, say, something goes wrong and you have to delay it a long time, you might not even get the mission off the ground. But at Vandenberg, where there's so few launches, you have a lot of opportunities in case delays happen, in case there's issues. You don't have to work around other payloads.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because case in point, exactly what you were just saying, Ian, the orbital inclination for this mission is 64.7 degrees, which is reachable out of the Kennedy Space Center going northeast with a dogleg trajectory in there. And this mission will actually perform a small dogleg maneuver because it has to avoid portions of Southern California and Baja as it goes out. So it actually can't go perfectly into the 64.7 degree inclination, so it will have to do a dogleg maneuver as well. So it's exactly what you were saying there. It came down to this is a much more stable and date certain range to launch off of.
Excellent. It's almost like there's not as much traffic out of this range, so it's easier to get yourself a launch slot, and you don't have to shuffle around with all the other rockets that are launching the other types of missions, huh?
Bingo.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's exactly...
Go ahead. I bet you we were going to say the exact same thing. Go for it.
I was going to say that's why Rocket Lab chose Wallops over Cape Canaveral, because like Vandenberg, there's not many launches from Wallops, so they can really get most of the range themselves.
Not what I was going to say, actually. This is the exact same reason that United Launch Alliance chose to launch the Mars Insight mission from Vandenberg instead of Cape Canaveral as well, and chose to launch it from Vandy because of the schedule certainty.
Very cool. Instead of messing around with all those pesky Starlink launches, they just said nothing launches from here. We'll go ahead and go out this way. Here is
I feel like Jack is reaching for his microphone now.
Oh, he's muted. Here is a question from Cruiser Frank saying, when will the impact take place? Next summer? How long is it going to take the spacecraft to get there and actually crash into the asteroid?
Yeah, so October of 2022 is when it is currently set for the collision with Dimorphos. So it will take it'll take just under 11 months to get there. About 10 and a half months to get there.
I feel like you need to say Dimorphos differently. It sounds like the name of a supervillain or something.
Well, to be fair, it does, and this is why, since the primary asteroid is called Didymos, I really want to call it Didymoon, but
Didymos.
which is sort of its loving nickname, because we didn't know Dimorphos existed at first. We actually found it in preparation for this mission. When it swung by Earth, and this is what sort of made this a great candidate to an even better candidate to go do. And they actually did call it Didymoon for a while before Dimorphos became the official name. Yeah.
Oh, here is one for Ian, Bob, and Michelle Murray asking, how will the ion engines be tested on this flight?
Yeah, so like Chris discussed before, the mission parameters changed. It's no longer being dropped off in a geostationary transfer orbit. It's being sent directly onto an Earth escape trajectory. But luckily and kind of unluckily, Falcon 9's second stage is not perfectly accurate. It's not going to shut down and then DART's going to instantly slam into the asteroid with no maneuvers, nothing like that. It's going to get DART to get pretty darn close to the asteroid, but DART itself will have to maneuver little bits here and there to fine-tune its trajectory and ensure that it slams right into Dimorphos. So the ion engine will be used for those burns, and those will be good to check it out. Now, it won't be getting as much use as it would have had they gone with the original mission plan, but that'll still be adequate enough to get enough testing in to certify the engine and determine how it operates.
Gotcha. So the Falcon 9 second stage is giving it the majority of the push on the way to the asteroid, right?
Yeah, it's like how your car will drive you into your driveway, but your car won't drive you into your living room unless you drive your car wrong.
Unless you're really bad at driving.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go with like a plane. Like you take a plane to another state, but then you get in a rental car or not driving into people's living room.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's worth noting too that is exactly how every mission works, right? Like the second stages of rockets, even the most efficient upper stage and most precise upper stage will still leave you with some dispersions in between where you're actually dropped off and the tweaked trajectory that you actually need to be in. So very, very common, especially on these interplanetary missions, for there to be some mid-course corrections.
For SpaceX launches, maybe.
For what?
I said for SpaceX launches, maybe. Tori, we love you. We love your infographics you put out. I hope you caught the tone in my voice there.
No, we love the Atlas, but even those payloads have to do mid-course corrections after they are launched.
And it looks like we're getting some more significant venting off the rocket there. And that is good. That's a sign that they're moving forward with the fuel loading, it looks like. T-minus 28 minutes now for the NASA launch of the DART, the literal mission that is going to crash into an asteroid intentionally, that double asteroid redirect test. And that's a Falcon 9 rocket you see. This is SpaceX launching this Falcon 9 out at Vandenberg in California. Vandenberg Spaceport Base? Space Force Base. Air Force Base was a lot easier to say, I'll tell you that much.
Right.
That's what's going on here. T-minus 28 minutes, and it is an instantaneous window. So it's either going to go tonight or it's not going to go tonight. It's not one of those long 4-hour windows where hold, scrub, move back, da-da-da-da. It's either going in 28 minutes or it's not. So if you're interested in seeing a rocket launch, I guarantee you won't have to wait around long before you know whether or not it's going tonight.
And hopefully this is a moot point in 27.5 minutes. But if there is not a launch today, there are daily opportunities out through, or more or less daily opportunities range pending out through the 15th of February for this particular mission, and the launch time would advance by 1 minute each day. So if we have to come back and do this tomorrow, we would be here at 1:20 for a liftoff instead of 1:21.
Good deal. Let me grab a couple super chats and stuff real quick. Starship, thank you for joining as a Red Team member. We appreciate you. 714 Metal Detecting says it's not much, but thanks for all you guys do. 714, it adds up. It definitely adds up. Thank you so much for the support. And also, hey, thank you for being here and listening to my bad jokes. It's late. It's 1 a.m. my time. I'm trying to stay awake here and tell you all some jokes in the meantime. D'Artagnan Gribble, appreciate the support as well. Anthony Donadio. I'm going to go with Donadio. Says, don't forget to smash that like button. I think that's what the kids are saying these days, isn't it? Bill Machi.
Just like Dart will smash into Dimorphos.
geez.
Smash that like button.
Oh my gosh, really?
But not at 6.6 kilometers per second. That would be bad.
That would be really bad for your keyboard, I think.
Yes.
Here is one. This is actually a great question from Bill Machi saying, does Vandenberg have public viewing, or do you just hang around the fences? Would like to see a launch. There are a couple opportunities to see launches from Vandenberg. You got to pay attention. Sometimes they open and close different roads around the area, but there is a road that goes up towards Surf Beach, and there are some public viewing sort of pullouts there. The trick is you can't actually see the launch pads from those closer in viewing points. You just sit there and then all of a sudden a rocket comes over the hill, which is really an amazing thing to see, but while you're sitting there, you don't have anything else to look at. Sometimes there's like a cauliflower field off to one side or something. And then there's a couple other elevated viewing spots. There's a local spot. When I went out there, what I did is I walked into the diner in the morning and I said, hey, I'm from out of town. I want to see a rocket launch. Where do you go? And the folks at the diner said the words Harris Grade Road, and you look that up on a map, and that's where Jack is right now, actually. It's sort of an overhang, overlook road on the side of a mountain. You know how they're sort of carved out of the side of a mountain? That is where I think all the locals go, but there's very, very limited space there. So
yeah, there's like you said, there you can get really close. You can get like I think within 3 miles, but the rocket is just a mountain range type situation. From the right spot on Ocean and Renwick, that's kind of the intersection that is the best area and the closest. You can sort of see the tip of the fairing, but you can't see the rocket on the pad.
Right.
Harris Grade, you can see the rocket on the pad, but you cannot see the base of the rocket. That's the trick there. But you can see the rocket before it lifts off, and you are higher up, so you have a better chance of potentially, maybe, hopefully, avoiding the fog. Although
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right there because that's what somebody told me. And I had the opportunity to go to the press site or go to Harris Grade, and they're like, well, if you go to Harris Grade, you can be above the fog so you don't see it. I went to Harris Grade, and I could barely see my hand in front of my face, man. I didn't even hear.
To be fair, that just sounds like a Wednesday at Vandenberg.
I didn't even hear. I went there for the last Delta II launch, the ISAT-2, and I was so excited to see the last Delta II launch. I didn't even hear the last Delta II launch. Like, I had no clue that it even launched. We were up on Harris Grade, and we could not see anything. Not even like a bright, slight glow off in the distance. So I didn't see anything that day. So anyways, it happens at Vandenberg. Hopefully tonight is looking good, knock on wood. The weather is going to continue to hold. Speaking of which, how's the weather looking right now? What was the last weather update there, Chris?
Yeah, the last weather update was a 90% 90% chance of go forecast. That was the final pre-launch weather forecast for today. And earlier as well, SpaceX indicated that there were really no concerns for weather for this evening. And if we should need tomorrow, that probability of go forecast for weather goes to a terrifying 100% go. So let's go today with 90.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. That's like bad luck to say 100% go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a quick question from McMahon. Is this launching to the south or to the north out of Vandenberg?
To the south. You can only go south out of Vandenberg.
Gotcha. So going to the south, and you said it had to do a little bit of a dogleg to miss parts of California or something?
Yeah, so the available launch inclinations that you can get to from Vandenberg run a pretty large range, but 64.7, which is where this one needs to get into, is just a little bit too low to get to directly from Vandenberg on a straight line. So the Falcon 9 will go south as far it will aim as far to the southeast as it can when it comes off the launch pad, and then it will just continue on that trajectory that keeps it far enough away from the populated areas of Southern California. And then once stage separation occurs, the second stage will do the slight dogleg maneuver to get into the final 64.7 degree inclination.
Gotcha. And let's see here. Another one, when's the next launch? Oh, we just talked about this one. The next launch opportunity if today is scrubbed is tomorrow right now, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, if for whatever reason today's were to scrub, we would go to a launch on Thursday, November 25th at 6:20 UTC, which would be Wednesday the 24th at 10:20 p.m. local time at Vandenberg.
Gotcha. All right. We answered this one as well. Kerbal guy, will the second stage do a dogleg after SEP? After SEP from the first stage, not after spacecraft SEP. But yeah, it is trying to avoid some of the parts of Southern California there. Let's see. Oh, well, somebody said, explain what a dogleg is.
Oh, great question. That's a great question. So basically, when rockets launch, the most efficient way that they can do it is to just roll onto a particular heading and just basically keep going straight. The straighter your trajectory, the most efficient you've got. But sometimes you can't do that for these like particular little orbits that we're trying to get into from Vandenberg at 64.7. So because you can't, so basically a dogleg is you go one direction for a particular time, and Das is going to draw this.
Don't do that.
Yeah, you can't go there, right?
Not allowed. So this is Vandenberg right here, right in this area is Vandenberg.
Yes. So sometimes you have to do the dogleg, and basically all that is you go straight downrange from Vandenberg for as far as you can, and then you kind of hook a little bit. In this case, it would be a hook to the left, and you go a little bit closer toward land. Exactly. And that hook is the dogleg.
Yeah, like this part right here. Yeah. I'm not going to try to draw the rest of the dog. But so again, this is not the exact trajectory, just so you know. This is me sort of exaggerating it. But this is why the drone ship is actually down there off the coast of Baja California. Isn't the drone ship somewhere down in this area, right? Let's see, somewhere down that way. I don't know exactly where it is.
Yes, off the coast of Baja California, yes.
Yep. And so the first stage is actually going to try to land there on the drone ship, and stage 2 is going to do that dog leg and get it into the exact inclination it's looking for. And also, if you look
into an asteroid and try to redirect it or try to move it into a different orbit.
So today, Shane, we're going to demonstrate some of those principles that you laid out before. But can you tell us exactly how we're going to do that?
We're going to try to demonstrate this asteroid kinetic deflection method, which is really the moment that spacecraft crashes into the asteroid. So here we go.
Shane is going to be the asteroid, and I'm going to be the NASA DART mission. I'm going to try to throw this CTB, and we'll look at the effect of that mass coming at him and the kinetic energy transfer. Shane will be perfectly stable. You ready? All right, here it comes. I've redirected Shane successfully. Pretty good. A while ago, we got out the door and we got some new solar arrays here on Space Station.
And so the same technology we have here now on the Space Station is going to be used to power the DART mission on its way to this asteroid.
ROSA, in case you didn't know, but you knew, it stands for ISS Rollout Solar Arrays.
So we got a chance to go outside and install the very first 2 of these new IROSAs, or Rollout Solar Arrays, on the very end of the space station, out on the port side. These are different because, for one, they're much lighter and smaller. To me, they look very fragile when we were picking them up and moving them, but they're rolled up. So when they launch, they're kind of rolled up into a compact cylinder, which is great for launch conditions. And then once they get up on the space station or in space for a satellite or something, they can then roll these things out to be useful. And so the same technology we have here now on the space station is going to be used to power the DART mission on its way to crashing into an asteroid.
So that was pretty fun early in the piece, watching Shane get knocked into the side of the International Space Station. But is that how kinetic impact will work on an asteroid that's in orbit?
Well, the nice thing is the laws of physics are the same in deep space as they are on the International Space Station. The asteroid Dimorphos might react a little differently from astronaut Shane because in addition to being impacted by something, there might be material thrown off from the surface that will affect that motion too. So it'll be a little different, but again, it's all physics.
I love it. Okay. Well, a lot of careful consideration went into choosing the right asteroid to test the effectiveness of a kinetic impact with the DART spacecraft. So let's go back to the Spacecraft Mission Operations Center in Maryland, where Samson Rainey is with one of the scientists who helped choose the asteroid. But first, Samson has the latest from the DART spacecraft team as they prepare for launch.
Hi, Daryl. Welcome back to the mock. So right now the team continues to simply monitor all their subsystems to make sure they are continue to be a go for launch. And as you remember what I said earlier about an event,
what it's doing could be, and I don't know if they'd want all of that out there right away. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Well, I'm thinking, so what might happen is possibly sorry, I'm blanking on the term. Whoever the mission leader, whatever that fancy term for the mission leader is.
Principal investigator.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Chris. The principal investigator and the team may publish the results in a journal, an academic journal, maybe a few years or a few months down the road. I'm not sure. It depends. I'm trying to recall. It was on the tip of my tongue how the New Horizons mission data worked.
That's exactly the mission I was trying to pull from my head. Yeah.
Because Alan Stern is so open about it.
Right. And I think the other thing with this is like we're also not going to have a lot of the information right away. Like a lot of that like what did it actually do is going to come from Hera in 2027. When the ESA follow-up mission, the part 2 for this, and the Hera probe gets there. So that's also a little complicating factor is the timeline of when we might actually have all of this data.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while till we get that, and plus it's gonna take like a long time to get data, not just from Hera, but from the ground-based observatories as well. It's not gonna be like, oh, we had an impact. All right, let's get the Keck telescope, let's get Hubble, let's get these telescopes going right now, and then an hour later, this is what happened. It's gonna be a long process of months, if not years, to even begin to get an idea of what happened from DART.
Spacecraft. Now, following separation from the second stage, the first stage will make its way back to Earth for the third time, where we will then attempt to recover it on our autonomous drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, and that is a live view of that drone ship right there on your screen. Now, if you turn your attention to the section above the first stage and the black carbon fiber inner stage, you'll see Falcon 9's second stage. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the first and second stage will separate, and the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum engine to carry the DART spacecraft to an interplanetary trajectory, as I mentioned earlier in the webcast. Separation from the second stage will occur, and then the spacecraft will perform burns as it begins its journey in space. Now, finally, above this stage, placed at the very top of the vehicle, you'll see the nose cone structure, and that is called a fairing. Inside of that structure is the DART spacecraft. The two fairing halves are safely encapsulating the spacecraft to protect it from aerodynamic heating, loads, and contamination during ascent. The fairing halves we are using today are brand new, and we plan to recover them on our recovery ship, NRC Quest. Now, once the vehicle reaches the vacuum of space, we will jettison the fairing halves as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit.
Good evening from Hawthorne, California. I'm John Isbrucker, the Falcon Principal Integration Engineer. And the launch vehicle and spacecraft are in good health and ready for launch as we approach T-minus 13 minutes, 30 seconds to liftoff. The Falcon 9 team reported on console at T-minus 2 hours, 15 minutes. We received the final countdown briefing from the SpaceX launch director, and we began the final checks of the launch vehicle and the ground systems. Final checkout of the flight termination system was performed at T-minus 1 hour, 45 minutes. Now, most recently, we completed the poll to proceed with propellant load and launch. Propellant loading is ongoing. We started it on time at T-minus 35 minutes. Now, Falcon 9 is a bipropellant vehicle, meaning it uses two propellants, a fuel and an oxidizer. For Falcon 9, our fuel is a refined form of kerosene known as RP1. Now, to burn the fuel, we need a source of oxygen, which we call the oxidizer. Most burning on Earth uses oxygen, which makes up about 21% of the air you breathe. However, in space, there is no atmosphere to provide oxygen or other oxygen-bearing molecules, so rockets need to carry their own. Falcon 9's oxidizer is super chilled liquid oxygen called densified LOX. The liquid oxygen is chilled well below its boiling point to increase its density, and that allows us to load more into the first and second stage LOX tanks. Now, currently, fuel loading is complete on the second stage. We're continuing fuel loading on the first stage up until T-minus 6 minutes. Liquid oxygen is loading on the first and second stages right now. Now, in addition to its propellants, Falcon 9 also needs an ignition source to start burning the fuel and oxidizer. And for that, we use the chemical T-tub, which stands for triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane. We ignite the engines by first flowing some liquid oxygen and T-tub into the gas generator and the main combustion chambers. The T-tub burns in the presence of oxygen. So once we get that ignition, then we can introduce the RP-1 kerosene fuel, and the Merlin engine goes to full power for liftoff. Now at liftoff, Falcon 9's 2 stages combine to hold over 1.1 million pounds propellant. And we'll burn through most of that over the 8.5 minutes it takes to land the first stage and get the second stage into its initial orbit. Now, once our Merlin engines begin to burn the RP-1 kerosene fuel and the liquid oxygen, you're going to see the rocket essentially throwing the combustion exhaust out of the engine nozzles in one direction, resulting in a push on the rocket in the opposite direction. And this is the great example of Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, we started the day with pretty good weather forecast, and the good news right now is weather officers giving us a 0% probability of violating launch weather requirements. The ground level winds are good, the upper altitude winds are good, and we don't expect to have any weather holds for launch. The weather conditions also look good for booster landing on our drone ship and for fairing recovery in the Pacific Ocean. So with that, the launch vehicle, the spacecraft, the weather, and the range are all good to go for a 10:21 p.m. Pacific time liftoff from Space Launch Complex 4 East.
Liftoff of Falcon 9 will kick off a roughly 11-month journey for the DART payload. The DART spacecraft will separate right around 56 minutes into flight, and from there it will spend the next 11 months cruising to its intended destination, intercepting the binary asteroid system between late September and early October of 2022. DART's target asteroid is the size of 2 football fields. Impact will occur when the distance between Earth and the asteroids is near its minimum, within 6.8 million miles or 11 million kilometers of Earth. This will enable scientists to observe and measure the change in momentum of the Dimorphos asteroid. And it's worth noting that Dimorphos is not a threat to Earth. Therefore, it's a perfect testing ground to see if intentionally crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid is an effective way to change its course should an Earth-threatening asteroid be discovered in the future.
Now, the DART demonstration has been carefully designed with 4 key objectives. The first objective is to demonstrate a kinetic impact with Dimorphos, the smaller the 2 asteroids. DART will hit the asteroid nearly head-on, delivering enough energy to leave an impact crater, but not enough to destroy the asteroid, eject it from its orbit around that larger asteroid, or noticeably change the pair's orbit about the sun. Now, the second objective is to change the binary orbital period of Dimorphos. Now, the orbital period is the time it takes the smaller asteroid to circle the larger asteroid you can see here in the graphic. Currently, Dimorphos is in that original orbit. Scientists estimate the collision will shorten the smaller asteroid's orbital period by several minutes, placing it into that new blue orbit. Now, the third objective is to use ground-based telescope observations to measure the orbital period change before and after the impact. Telescopic observations in the weeks after impact will confirm that DART changed that orbital period of Dimorphos, and it'll reveal by how much. And then finally, the fourth objective is to measure the effects of the impact and the efficiency of that deflection. Now, choosing this binary asteroid target for the demonstration takes advantage of the fact that changes in that smaller asteroid's orbit around its larger partner can be more easily measured than the changes in a single asteroid's orbit around the sun.
To ensure the best possible data capture, the DART mission is taking along some pretty cool technologies to help capture this demonstration test. On board the spacecraft is the Didymos reconnaissance and asteroid camera for optical navigation, also known as Draco. Now, this is not to be confused with the Draco thrusters on SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. DART's Draco will provide real-time streaming images of the asteroid as it approaches impact. In addition to the onboard camera, the team is also flying a CubeSat from the Italian space agency known as Licia Cube, which stands for Light Italian CubeSat for imaging of asteroids. This cube will be deployed from the DART spacecraft 10 days prior to impact with the asteroid. Licia Cube will use its onboard propulsion system to alter its trajectory, offsetting so that it flies past Dimorphos approximately 3 minutes after the DART impact to capture the effects of the impact. Now, it's pretty incredible to think about what a mission like this could mean for the future of planetary defense. Now let's take a closer look at what the NASA team is hoping to achieve with the double asteroid redirection test mission.
In case there was an asteroid coming towards Earth and you're there, you can actually stop it. I mean, that's kind of fantastic.
NASA is crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid.
What? You think science fiction, but this is real. Never in my life would I have thought I would take a couple $100 million spacecraft and crash it into an asteroid. My name is Michelle Chen.
I'm Lena Adams.
My name is Kelly Fast.
I'm Andy Rifkin.
I'm Justina Sorovitz, and I help tell the story of the DART mission.
I'm a planetary defender.
And I study how the orbits of asteroids change after we hit them with spacecraft.
My job was primarily to make sure all the systems on the spacecraft work together.
The DART mission is NASA's first test of a planetary defense technique called kinetic impactor.
DART is the double asteroid redirection test.
It's just a spacecraft that is going to go and smack an asteroid.
The moonlit Dimorphos, which orbits the asteroid Didymos.
And see if we can change its trajectory just a little bit.
In order to show that we can deflect incoming asteroids if we need to.
DART will only be changing the period of the orbit of Dimorphos by a tiny amount.
But in space, just a little bit is just enough to make an asteroid actually miss us.
In the event that an asteroid is discovered well ahead of time before it might impact Earth.
Behind me, you see the spacecraft.
It's really cool to see it coming together in real life.
It is fantastic to see it in real life.
To see it turn from ideas into real pieces that are gonna go into space.
The solar arrays will actually roll out to 28 feet in length.
Once the solar arrays are deployed, it's going to be the size of a school bus. As the solar array opens out, it's going to swing out in this direction. The asteroid's only 2 football fields in size.
We're flying at over 6 kilometers a second.
30 days out, we see 1 pixel on our field of view.
You can see Didymos and Dimorphos as 1 point of light.
About 4 hours.
And it may be a little bit difficult to see the retraction here because of the fog that's around the vehicle right now.
NLM, LD on countdown 1.
LD, this is NLM.
Looking to confirm you and your team are go for launch.
Yeah, NASA is go for launch.
All right, so we just heard that confirmation that the NASA team is go for launch. And we can see that strong back retract happening as we speak.
And basically that was the last confirmation from between the NASA team and the SpaceX team to say that we're good to go. And next,
go ahead.
And next milestone you hear coming up would be the stage 1 LOX load complete. And that's basically topping off the oxidizer tank on the stage 1. And that should be coming up here shortly.
And you can see a little bit better on your screen now that the
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
Yep, just heard that confirmation. So the stage 1 is completely topped off of fuel and oxidizer. So we're looking good on stage 1 right now. And shortly coming up, you'll hear them topping off the stage 2 tank.
There's a wider view now of the transporter erector. You can see that recline. And as we get into those final seconds before liftoff, we will see that recline even further, all the way to 45 degrees just before liftoff, clearing the way for DART to take flight.
Yeah, and as you see, the strong back is tilted back a little bit. You see some cables that are still connected to the Falcon 9. Those are the umbilicals that are still providing power and fluids to the Falcon 9. And at liftoff, they will disconnect, and the Stromback will move even further out of the way and to give it a nice clearance when it takes off.
We'll have a series of rapid events after liftoff that will guide you through with that progress bar. And Falcon 9 will have 2 burns for this mission.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
We just got that confirmation that Stage 2 LOX load complete. At this point in time, all of the propellants have been loaded onto the launch vehicle, and everything's looking good.
And in the meantime, the SpaceX drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, is standing by in the Pacific Ocean, ready to receive the first stage booster. That will be landing little more than 9 minutes after liftoff on the drone ship. We don't expect to hear sonic booms here on land because it's coming down in the Pacific Ocean. So if you were here for Sentinel-6, you probably heard those a couple of sonic booms. That was because the booster was landing on land. Not the case this time.
Yeah, it would be awesome to hear it, though. It's
Falcon 9's in startup.
It's awesome to see. We just heard a call out that this Falcon 9 is in startup. That means it's going through its startup sequences. The flight computer is taking over, and it's going through its process.
Falcon 9, DART, go for launch.
We just heard that final call that Falcon 9 and DART are go for launch. T-minus 35 seconds and counting.
T-minus 30 seconds.
T-minus 20 seconds.
T-minus 15. 10.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 and DART on NASA's first planetary defense test to intentionally crash into an asteroid.
So we're getting a nice view of the onboard cameras from the Falcon 9. So you can see it looking towards the aft end of the first stage, and you can see those engines coming to life.
Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.
And Falcon 9 will be reaching max Q in just seconds, the moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket.
And here in the Mission Data Center, we can feel the rumble from the Falcon 9, and it's always amazing to hear and feel.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Everything looking good right now. It's really shaking the building where we are.
Vehicle supersonic.
Just heard that call out for supersonic. Going faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
And we've just passed max Q, that moment of peak mechanical stress on Falcon 9.
And everything's looking good. We're still getting some nice views of the onboard Falcon 9 camera. And we should be coming up on main engine shut off here in about a minute. So far, everything's looking good. All reports are nominal.
Invec chill has started.
We just heard the call off impact chill, so that's where it's getting ready to prepare second stage for engine ignition.
Now that main engine cutoff, or Miko, we expect at T plus 2 minutes 30 seconds, and then almost immediately after that, the first and second stage of Falcon 9 will separate, followed by the stage 2 first ignition, and then shortly thereafter, the jettison fairing at about T plus 3 minutes 8 seconds. So far, nominal liftoff.
And as if you notice, the plume or the flame coming from the engines have gotten bigger. That means it's high in the atmosphere, where the atmosphere isn't compressing the flames coming from the launch vehicle.
Miko.
Okay, we just heard that.
Separation confirmed.
Invac ignition.
So we just got confirmation of Miko stage separation and stage 2 ignition.
And so this is a view of the stage 1 Falcon 9 booster. You can see those hypersonic grid fins beginning to extend. The shot is a little bit dark, but you can see them extended out from the base.
Bearing separation confirmed.
Of the booster, and we just heard confirmation that the jettison fairing is complete. And those hypersonic grid fins help guide the Falcon 9 booster back down towards Earth. Again, it's heading towards the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship.
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
So we just heard everything's looking good for stage 2. You heard the positive confirmation of fairing jettison. And the Falcon 9 booster will be coming back. They'll be doing 2 burns. They'll be doing a boost back burn to get it closer to the Of Course I Still Love You that's sitting about 400 miles south of where we are off the coast of Baja, California. And then they'll do another burn for when it's coming in for a landing.
We're at T plus 4 minutes, 6 seconds, and so far nominal ascent of the DART mission, NASA's first planetary defense test. Falcon 9 booster will begin its re-entry burn in a little over 3 minutes.
So far everything's looking great, and that's exactly what we wanted to hear. It was awesome to hear it and feel a launch while we're sitting here in the mission data center.
Yeah, that rumble never gets old.
Yeah.
And hard to believe in about 11 months from now that that DART spacecraft the size of a vending machine is going to
Mid-flight guidance.
crash head-on into Dimorphos at the speed of 15,000 miles per hour.
Yeah, and as we were talking about before, how fast is 15,000 miles an hour? I mean, it's like going from New York City to Los Angeles in less than a blink of an eye. So faster than you could blink, you travel across the country. So right now we're getting a good video that's looking at the interstage.
We're obviously having some technical issues with some of our video feeds.
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
Trying to get those feeds, get those kinks worked out so we can get those views back for you. But in the meantime, we will continue to talk you through everything that we're hearing. We can't see those views, but we are hearing that everything is nominal and on track.
Yeah, and as as you heard before, it may be difficult sometimes to get the video from the stage 1 landing. It's coming in very fast, and sometimes it's hard to get that video.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's okay. We can see, and we see a view there. It's just very dark out.
Okay, so look like we're getting some good video.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
All right, so we got stage 1 coming in.
Now you've got a better look at those grid fins.
It's always amazing to see stage 1 coming back in for a landing.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
All right, so
Okay, we've got a beautiful shot of stage 2 now.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
Terminal guidance.
And what we're looking at is the nozzle of stage 2, and you see it glowing hot.
Loss of signal, cook.
At this point in time, everything's looking nominal.
And what you're seeing is that MVAC engine on the Falcon 9 second stage glowing red hot, and we just heard that engine shut down.
So stage 2 just completed its first burn of the first of 2 burns. So the first burn of second stage is helping to circularize the orbit after the launch vehicle has gotten off of
Stage 1, landing burn.
the surface of the Earth. And then there's a second burn that'll be coming up. But right now, we are getting the landing burn from stage 1. It's coming in for his landing. Look like we're getting some good video.
Stage 1, landing leg deployed.
You can see this. You can see the drone ship. The landing legs are out. All right, so we're back. We're getting another view of stage 2 during its coast. And we just heard positive confirmation of stage 1 landing.
Yeah, it's tricky to maintain that feed from the drone ship at the moment of landing, but we do have confirmation that the first stage booster has landed safely and successfully on the, of course, I Still Love You, off the coast of Baja, California. And so now we are in the first coast phase of the Falcon 9 second stage, of course, still attached to the DART spacecraft. So it's going to be coasting for the next 20 minutes or so, give or take, and then second burn will get started. So we're going to keep an ear on things. But for now, we want to learn a little bit more about DART's mission. And to kick us off, we want to hear from the director of a new Hollywood movie about a cataclysmic comet.
I heard there's an asteroid. Tell me about it.
Hi, I'm Adam McKay, director of Don't Look Up. Our movie is about 3 scientists who tried desperately to warn the planet of an impending doomsday comet and are ignored. Our movie's made up. It's a comedy. But in fact, the brilliant scientists at NASA are actually launching a mission. It's called DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test. And what they're going to test is, can you send up a mission that can deflect an asteroid and steer it away from Earth if, God forbid, something like that were ever to happen? Remember to keep an eye out for it. It's going to be spectacular.
Thanks to Adam McKay of the soon-to-be-released science fiction comedy Don't Look Up. Folks, we are back inside the NASA hangar, and though the movie is not real, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, is real, and we are ready to show you every aspect of this mission with the experts who know. So welcome back, everyone. I'm Daryl Nail, and with me is Kelly Fast, program scientist with the Planetary Defense Coordination Office. We hope you really enjoyed watching the launch. I know Kelly did, because as it was going up, you were going, go, go, pumping your fists.
That was so exciting to hear the rumble of the rocket noise come through the hangar here, but then just, again, being so excited for the team that has worked so hard on this. I know they are partying it up wherever they're watching from, and so I'm so excited for them.
Yes, especially that launch viewing location out there. I heard that it was a fantastic view, and that was pretty neat to see at least the first part of the landing where it was coming down and illuminated the ship. But even more so to see that DART spacecraft and the fairing come out. There it is, going to space.
Oh, I know we're not out of the woods yet. We still got to get that all the way out to Dimorphos, but this is a huge step along the way.
Absolutely. That is very important, because there is a lot more work to do to get this. And, of course, we're going to be tracking all of that. You know, going back to that movie trailer, you know, Hollywood's always had fun with asteroids and, you know, ending the Earth with one of them. But the movie's called Don't Look Up, but really, you're kind of evidence that we're looking up more now than ever.
I like that Adam McKay kind of put it into context, that it's fiction, it's a comedy, but you know, in the real world, there's a lot of work going on with a lot of scientists looking for near-Earth asteroids, getting them cataloged. There's an international asteroid warning network. There's astronomers around the world doing this, and it's a big focus at NASA. And so it's the only natural disaster that we could prevent, an asteroid impact. And so why not use your capabilities to look, to the extent that you can, rack those up, and then do something like DART, so that you've got a tool in the toolbox there.
Absolutely. And there's so much more to talk about. There are other ways, I've heard, that we could do this. This is one we're testing. We'll talk to Lori Glaze about that. And then we'll also have your close approach demonstration, which we're really looking forward to. So that's coming up in just a bit. So in the next hour, we are going to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about asteroids and break down the DART mission from A to Z. And we're going to start with an overview of this mission.
In case there was an asteroid coming towards Earth and you're there, you can actually stop it. I mean, that's kind of fantastic.
NASA is crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid.
What? You think science fiction, but this is real. Never in my life would I have thought I would take a couple $100 million spacecraft and crash it into an asteroid. My name is Michelle Chen.
I'm Lena Adams.
My name is Kelly Fast.
I'm Andy Rifkin.
I'm Justina Sorovitz, and I help tell the story of the DART mission.
I'm a planetary defender.
And I study how the orbits of asteroids change after we hit them with spacecraft.
My job was primarily to make sure all the systems on the spacecraft work together.
The DART mission is NASA's first test of a planetary defense technique called kinetic impactor.
DART is the double asteroid redirection test.
It's just a spacecraft that is going to go and smack an asteroid.
The moonlet Dymorphos, which orbits the asteroid Didymos.
And see if we can change its trajectory just a little bit.
In order to show that we can deflect incoming asteroids if we need to.
DART will only be changing the period of the orbit of Dimorphos by a tiny amount.
But in space, just a little bit is just enough to make an asteroid actually miss us.
In the event that an asteroid is discovered well ahead of time before it might impact Earth.
Behind me, you see the spacecraft.
It's really cool to see it coming together in real life.
It is fantastic to see it in real life.
To see it turn from ideas into real pieces that are going to go into space.
The solar arrays will actually roll out to 28 feet in length.
Once the solar arrays are deployed, it's going to be the size of a school bus. As the solar array opens out, it's going to swing out in this direction. The asteroid's only 2 football fields in size.
We're flying at over 6 kilometers a second.
30 days out, we see 1 pixel on our field of view.
You can see Didymos and Dimorphos as 1 point of light.
About 4 hours out, our spacecraft becomes autonomous.
And then that's where everything gets really exciting.
You actually are seeing impact.
We're super excited and nervous as well.
I feel really honored and humbled to be working in an area of science that has such a broader impact, figuratively and literally.
No DART. The dinosaurs are made completely extinct by an asteroid impact so many years ago. Here we are, we can actually do something about it. I think this is just wonderful.
And as was mentioned in there, this is the first planetary defense mission. And this is your office we're talking about, Kelly. So for the audience out there that doesn't understand or hasn't heard of this before, what is the Planetary Defense Coordination Office? What do you do?
Well, right. Well, NASA's actually been working on near-Earth asteroid research since 1998, so this has been going on a long time. But in 2016, it was really formalized more in the creation of this Planetary Defense Coordination Office, which is in the Planetary Science Division at NASA headquarters. And it takes that legacy near-Earth object observations program, all the, the finding them part of the program, and then combines that with these other activities like DART, like the development of the Near-Earth Object Surveyor Space Telescope, like our interagency collaborations like we saw with FEMA there, our international collaborations, and formalizing all of that and leading the Planetary Defense Coordination Office. Lindley Johnson, we say he's got the coolest title in the solar system as NASA's Planetary Defense Officer.
All right, and he sure does. I enjoy listening to him in that interview earlier. Now, throughout the show, we will be taking the most popular questions NASA gets about asteroids and posing them to experts like Kelly. This next question is for NASA expert Marina Brozovic. When was the last time an asteroid hit Earth?
Well, the answer depends on whether you're asking about small or large impacts, because Earth gets hit all the time. But luckily for us, the vast majority of these impactors are small, and they just burn in the atmosphere. The most significant fireball event in over 100 years occurred over Russia in 2013. We actually got hit by an asteroid that was the size of a small building, and that one disintegrated about 20 kilometers above the city of Chelyabinsk. And it deposited a fair number of meteorites on the ground. And I happen to have a piece of that Chelyabinsk impactor right here in my hand. But what about big impacts? The ones that leave craters tens of kilometers wide and cause huge amount of devastation. We have to go far back in time for such an event. And those old craters are not easy to spot, because by now they're heavily eroded, they're filled with sediment, or they can be at the bottom of the ocean. But to keep the long story short, small impacts, they happen all the time, especially given that about 15,000 tons of space dust hit Earth every year. And large impacts are rare, and we are talking millions of years rare. So when was the last time an asteroid hit Earth? Probably today, but the odds are it was very small and just burned in the atmosphere.
The binary asteroid system DART is taking aim at was chosen for many reasons. Let's join Raquel Villanueva with a special guest to explain that. But first, Raquel, you saw the launch in person live. What was that like?
Ooh, it was chilly with lots of excitement and lots of cheers, lots of fun. And I am here with DART program scientist Tom Statler to talk about the double asteroid mission. Like, what did you think of launch, Tom?
Oh, Raquel, it was a beautiful, beautiful launch and tremendously exciting.
Now, can you tell me why the asteroid was chosen?
Oh, well, a binary asteroid system and the Didymos binary asteroid system is the perfect natural laboratory for the double asteroid redirection test. For one thing, the larger asteroid makes sure that the smaller asteroid is held in orbit around it, so there's absolutely nothing that we can do that would make this asteroid a danger to the Earth. But more important, it's about the measurement. We need to be able to measure how efficiently DART deflects the asteroid, and we're using that binary orbit of the little asteroid around the big one to do that. We're going to change the period of that orbit by just a few minutes, and we're going to be able to measure the size of that change using telescopes on Earth in the weeks and months after impact and precisely determine exactly what it was we did.
Now, DART is called a kinetic impactor, which is intended to change the orbit of an asteroid. So what kind of mass and speed is needed to alter the orbit of this particular asteroid?
Well, the DART spacecraft weighs about 500 kilograms, which Andy Rivkin, one of the investigation team leads, said the other day is about the mass of a small cow, which is, I guess, true. And it's going to be impacting the asteroid at a speed of about 15,000 miles an hour. So at that speed, it covers the last 4 miles to impact in 1 second. Now, that's going to deliver enough of a push to the asteroid to change its motion by a fraction of a millimeter per second. But it is more than just the push of the spacecraft. It's also the energy released in that tremendous collision at 15,000 miles an hour.
Now we can envision the small cow. Now, really quickly, how do you measure success for this mission?
Well, success is, of course, first, we want to execute the kinetic impact and strike the asteroid. But success is really being able to see the magnitude of that change. And at the end, when the observations are done a few months after impact, having that measurement and knowing exactly how efficiently we deflected the asteroid, and then later with additional data being able to put that in context and knowing what we might have to do for a similar asteroid or a different asteroid in the future if we ever do need to deflect one.
Tom, thank you so much for answering our questions today.
My pleasure, Raquel.
I'll send it back to Daryl.
Thank you, Raquel and Tom. And so now I have a clear picture of the size. Vending machine, golf cart, and cow. That's great. Crystal clear now. Well, from time to time, you'll hear a report about an asteroid making a close approach to Earth. As my co-host Kelly Fast shows us, a simple demonstration with a basketball, an orange, and a tiny pebble can help us get a better understanding of what's a really close approach and what's not.
Well, and here we are.
Here we are, big open field.
You know, we're just talking about how sometimes you hear about asteroids that pass close to the Earth, and maybe the news will say, oh, there's an asteroid passing 10 times the distance from the Earth to the Moon. And
I think, whoa, man, that's close.
Well, yeah, it sure sounds like it, but what does that mean? And you found this basketball that looks like the Earth. And so we could do a scale model here. So if the Earth was that size, the Moon would be the size like of this orange. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it out to where the Moon would be if it were this size.
Oh, okay.
So here we go, probably about 25 feet, which I paced out earlier. So here we go. And so if the Earth were the size of a basketball, then the Moon would be out here. And so if an asteroid were passing like at 10 times the distance from the Earth to the Moon, you know, it would be 10 times out that way.
Right, even probably past the building.
But on a cosmic scale, not that far. We still want to keep an eye on asteroids that could come this close. But as asteroids pass closer to the Earth, again, they're not impacting. As we get to maybe this distance, this is about like the distance of the weather satellites. That's really starting to get close. We don't want to get buzzed that close.
What do you have to show for the asteroid?
Well, you know, if you had this type of a scale, an asteroid might be about, in fact, this is too big. This pebble is even too big to represent even the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs.
Really?
Yeah, it would probably be smaller than a grain of salt,
wow.
But we wouldn't be able to see it very well here.
So is this a close approach?
Yeah, we would call that a close approach, but it's not an impact, and so we're good. And this seems very small relative to the Earth. But it's the speed when they're going very fast. Like, you know, if you've ever been at the beach, you get sandblasted when it's windy. Mm-hmm. It's the speed that added with that mass.
Can hurt.
Yeah. And so, and that's why you get craters on surfaces when they impact. Our atmosphere does a good job of protecting us, disrupting asteroids on the way in. But if they're large enough, then they can reach the surface and do even more damage. And so that's why you want to find them early. Then you could do something like the DART mission, where you could deflect that asteroid just a small amount, and then it would miss the Earth as you spun the solar system into the future.
Right. Well, can you take this little asteroid and go out there past the Moon?
Sure.
Because that just makes us feel better. Now it's way out.
Keeping where it should be out here.
I enjoyed that. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I can't believe you found a basketball that looked like the Earth. That was perfect.
Specifically for this demonstration. Great job, Kelly. Most scientific spacecraft have lots of instruments on board, but for DART, there's only one. It's the camera on the front, and it's called Draco, or Didymos Reconnaissance and Asteroid Camera for Operational Navigation. For more about how this camera will help steer DART into the asteroid, let's go out to APL and Samson Rainey.
Hey, Daryl. Joining me right now is Tarek Daly, who is Draco's Deputy Instrument Scientist. First, Tarek, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that fantastic launch. It never gets old to watch a NASA launch, does it?
It's a stunning experience. Absolutely beautiful, Samson.
Congratulations on that first major step of the mission.
To the whole team.
All right, so I'm going to take us out, way out, to about a month before impact, say. Mm-hmm. And Draco is, you know, first detecting that first speck of light that is in the blackness of space, and it's our target binary asteroid system, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what is going to happen with Draco at that moment up until impact? What is it going to do?
So Draco is the eyes of the spacecraft. The images Draco takes provide the data needed to guide the spacecraft to hit the asteroid. So beginning about 30 days out, we'll take images every few hours that get processed on the ground for optical navigation. We'll also measure how the brightness of the asteroid changes over a period of several hours, because that will tell us more about the relative sizes and shapes of the bodies. Things get really interesting about 4 hours before impact. That's when the spacecraft transitions to autonomous navigation. At this point, something called SmartNav takes over, which was developed here at Johns Hopkins APL, and the spacecraft now drives itself to the asteroid. The asteroid system at this point is less than a pixel across. It's actually not until an hour before impact that the camera can actually see the secondary asteroid, the Moon, separately from the primary asteroid. And it's not even until just 20 seconds before impact that you can see things on the surface the size of the spacecraft. And all this navigation is happening using algorithms on board the spacecraft.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, we are looking forward to those pics when they come next year. So good luck on that, Tarek.
Thank you so much, Samson.
Tossing it back to you, Daryl.
All right, thank you, Samson and Tarek. The DART spacecraft is still flying through space, and we have an important flight operation happening in just a few minutes. So let's check in with Marie and Denton for the latest on that.
All right, thank you, Daryl and Kelly. We are getting ready for the second burn of the second stage of Falcon 9.
Yeah, and basically what this was happening here is after the coast, the engine going to fire up, and it's going to be a shorter burn, and this is basically going to give us the velocity to get out of Earth orbit and heading towards the Didymos system.
And so we expect that second burn to begin at T plus 28 minutes, 31 seconds. So we have a view there now of that is the Merlin MVAC engine on the Falcon 9 second stage. And that second ignition coming up in just a few seconds.
Yeah, and as we approach the ground station, we're getting better telemetry and video from the vehicle. And from there, you can kind of see the trajectory of where we are heading towards right now. Right now, we're near the southern tip of South America.
MVAC ignition.
And we just got confirmation of MVAC ignition. And you can see the video there. You can see the engine coming to life.
And so we are, right now, DART is near the southern tip of Chile, near the capital city of the area's southernmost region. And so this next burn lasts just under a minute, and then we expect to hear second cutoff at T plus 29 minutes, 27 seconds. So in just a few seconds now. You can see that MVAC engine glowing red hot during this second burn.
Everything's looking good.
MVAC shutdown.
And we just got confirmation of engine shutdown.
All right, so that was a pretty quick burn.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was just a short burn needed to give it that velocity so it can head towards the Didymos system.
Okay, so now we are in a coast phase again.
Nominal escape burn.
Okay, so confirmation, everything nominal. There is a view of the "Of Course I Still Love You" drone ship with the booster safely landed there. That is the third landing of this booster, so congratulations to SpaceX on yet another one. In the meantime, DART is in a coast phase with the second stage for about another 26 minutes or so. And during this coast phase, the spacecraft will fly over the South Pole. And by the time of spacecraft separation at roughly T plus 55, 56 minutes, DART will be near the southern tip of Madagascar. So we'll be continuing to keep an ear on things. So far, this has been a beautiful start to DART's journey. It's got 11 months roughly to make it to the Didymos system, where it will impact Dimorphos in late September or early October of 2022. For now, Daryl and Kelly. Actually, no, we are going to go over to NASA's Megan Cruz. She spoke to the Launch Services Program flight design expert about what it takes to design a trajectory as complex and as unique as this one in order to get DART to its very precise destination to impact that asteroid. So let's go over now to Megan Cruz.
Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you're a flight design expert with NASA's Launch Services Program, and you lead the team who designed DART's flight path. Can you tell me about that flight path, and was it difficult to plot out?
Unlike a lot of missions where you have a single trajectory that's going to get you to some point in Earth orbit, we're designing a new set of targets for the launch vehicle to hit on every single day, up to 90 targets in this case. So a fair bit of trajectory analysis, a lot of computer time, and a lot of work by the combined team, both here at NASA LSP and our spacecraft partners at JPL and APL, and of course, SpaceX.
Why the instantaneous window and not the longer window we typically see for scientific missions?
When we talk about launch opportunity, that is actually like the number of days that we can launch. And when we talk about launch window, that is the amount of time on a particular day that we can launch. So given the fact that we had 90 days to potentially launch this mission, and the fact that SpaceX has a pretty good history of launching on the first or second day in the opportunity, we decided that it was more efficient and a better use of the limited resources that we all have to do these kinds of missions, to focus on having the best launch trajectory for each day. And if for whatever reason we weren't able to launch that day, we've got another day right behind it.
And why did you guys ultimately decide to launch from the central coast of California and not here in Florida?
Great question. Typically, for a lot of our interplanetary missions, the most important thing is to get as much energy out of the launch vehicle, and that's no different for DART. However, usually the best way to do that is to launch as close to the equator and on an easterly trajectory. So Kennedy Space Center or Cape Canaveral Space Force Station are the ideal locations for that. As it turns out, though, this particular outbound trajectory requires that outbound ground track to be more in a north-south direction. And so we're going to launch from the west coast of California and fly out on basically a southerly trajectory. And that is a much better way to launch to avoid overflights of populated land masses.
Yeah, absolutely. And where will you be and what will you be doing during the launch?
So I'll actually be here at Kennedy Space Center. Typically, pre-COVID, in my role, I would be traveling out to the West Coast. I'll be monitoring the progress of the vehicle during ascent and making regular updates to the NASA chief engineer, and right up to spacecraft separation, and then I'll be looking at the data from the rocket and making a determination of how well we did. And I'm very confident that we're going to hit that orbit very accurately.
Bill, it sounds like you'll be very busy during launch. I hope you find some time to enjoy what you guys have worked so hard to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Megan and Bill. Planetary defense takes planetary participation. Here's a message now from Administrator Bill Nelson about NASA's leadership in this global effort.
At NASA, we are always looking upward, keeping an eye on the sky for potential hazards and exploring asteroids to help us unlock the secrets of the formation of not only our solar system, but the universe. Well, we have a new mission, NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test. It's known as DART, and it's going to help us learn if by intentionally crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid to see if there's any slight change in its trajectory. And this collision will change the asteroid ever so slightly, so that if you got it way, way away from Earth, if it was inbound to Earth, you could change that trajectory and it would escape Earth. And what DART's going to do, it's going to ram this asteroid, that is an asteroid revolving around another asteroid. It's going to ram it at 15,000 miles an hour and see if we can change that trajectory just a little bit. And DART is not only going to help NASA, but indeed the world prepare in the event that an Earth-threatening asteroid were to be discovered and we thought it was coming to Earth. So this is important. Go DART.
Thank you, Administrator Nelson. Joining us now is the director of NASA's Science Mission Directorate's Planetary Science Division. Let's welcome Lori Glaze to the NASA hangar, who just came from the Mission Control Center, watched the whole launch. You get to see all the cameras and the computers and everything. So first of all, I want to ask you, how was that?
It was really incredible, I have to say. Sitting there in the room with the headphones on, and you can listen to the spacecraft team as they go through all of their checks and making sure that they've got everything ready to go, and all the go for fuel, and then watching the monitors. You can see the fuel tanks filling up on both of the main booster and on the second stage, and then the final poll when you get, the spacecraft teams go for launch, and then you hear the launch team say, "Is NASA ready for launch?" And NASA launch manager says, "NASA is go for launch." And then I'm going to admit that I snuck outside and watched.
You got to go out.
And it was amazing.
Clear sky. You could see it the whole way.
Clear sky, lit up behind the hill there. Gorgeous.
Oh, it's so fabulous. This is so fun, Lori, because you're my boss and I get to ask you questions. Well, and as part of your division, Planetary Defense Coordination Office is in there, and you've got the DART mission. What other missions are under the Planetary Defense portfolio?
So, great question. In addition to the DART mission, which we now have just launched, we actually also have a mission. I know you've been talking about the importance of detecting and characterizing asteroids. We have a mission that's called the NEO-WISE mission, or the Near Earth Object WISE mission, which is a repurposing of the old WISE mission that we actually use to do some detection of asteroids, but also a lot of characterization so that we know what the asteroids look like, what they're made of, and what their orbits are. And then we have a new mission that we've just started developing that we're hoping to launch in the next few years. That's called the Near Earth Object Surveyor mission, or NEO Surveyor. And that mission is going to be really dedicated to looking for those near-Earth objects. That'll be its sole purpose. We're going to send it out to a stable orbit called the Lagrangian point, L1. Should be an amazing mission.
We'll have the eyes in space besides just the telescope, which is pretty neat.
Exactly.
I got to wondering, with this kinetic impactor, we're testing that. We'll find out about that in about 10 months. But do we have any other ways that we're looking at to move an asteroid off course?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are multiple ideas that have been thought about in different techniques that have been developed and studied. The kinetic impactor is the most mature. That's why we're testing it first. But other cool ideas that are out there are things called like a gravity tractor, which would essentially adjust the mass of the object by either adding or subtracting, and then you have changing the gravitational pull. Another idea which is out there is to potentially detonate a nuclear device, not on the, you don't want to blow up the asteroid.
Oh, well, it sounds like Armageddon.
No,
not quite.
No, you don't want to do that. You want to detonate it near the asteroid to just give it a push.
How about that? Fascinating. All technologies you're working on. Lori Grays, Director of NASA Science Mission Directorate's Planetary Science Division, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so with that, it's time to ask the expert scientists at NASA another question about the asteroids. And this one, folks, this one's for NASA asteroid expert Davide Farnocchia. We're going to ask him the question, is NASA aware of any Earth-threatening asteroids?
No, there is no asteroid that we know of that is concerning in terms of impact hazard. Now, we know that asteroid impacts have happened in the past and can certainly happen in the future. But we should keep in mind that those are rare events. An asteroid impact that could cause serious regional damage only happens every few thousand years or longer. Still, it's a good idea to protect us against that possibility, and the rule of the game is find asteroids before they find us. And that's why, for over 20 years, NASA has been funding search programs to observe the sky pretty much every single night to find and track asteroids. And we've been doing a pretty good job at that. So far, we've discovered more than 1 million asteroids, including 95% of the asteroids that are greater than 1 kilometer and that could come close to the Earth. Once we discover an asteroid, we project its motion into the future to assess the possibility of an impact with Earth. We have a scale called Torino scale that helps us rank the risk coming from each asteroid. It goes from 0, which is lowest risk, to 10, which is highest risk. The good news is that for all the asteroids that we've discovered so far, the Torino scale is 0, so lowest risk for the next 100 years. So, is NASA aware of any Earth-threatening asteroids? No, but we will keep searching the skies just in case.
And that's good news. We now heard about the instrument on board a little further back, the Draco camera. Now let's discuss the computer that will use Draco's camera and the images from it to autonomously fly DART into its target. Samson Rainey is back now with us from the Mission Operations Center in Maryland with a special guest to tell us more. Samson?
Hey, Daryl. Joining me right now is SmartNav lead Michelle Chen. Michelle, give us some insights into what you call the brains of the spacecraft. How will SmartNav allow DART to identify its target and stay on that target for the whole 4 hours before impact.
Right. So at 4 hours is when SmartNav starts controlling the spacecraft. And if you imagine that you're the spacecraft and you're looking at the Didymos system, you're going to see the Didymos system and Didymos itself. And at about an hour to go is when the little guy, Dimorphos, starts eclipsing and coming out from eclipse. And it is at that point that we start guiding towards Dimorphos.
Great. So why did you choose this method for the mission as opposed to other alternatives?
So this method, we kind of need it because everyone's been talking about the 15,000 miles per hour. So that's 250 miles in 1 minute. Wow. And for us to joystick that from the ground with the 1 minute round trip light delay for communications, it would be impossible. So we needed something autonomous on board.
That's incredible. So how are you feeling right now, and how are you going to feel, when we approach those 4 hours before impact?
Right. Yeah, so APL has a lot of experience on maturing guiding technology, and SmartNav is an IRAD that we started 8 years ago. And it's kind of like a child, right? So we've spent the past 8 years training and teaching this child to basically drive the spacecraft on its own. And like a parent would say, we're going to be sitting in the passenger seat, watching our child drive, and we're going to be really excited and nervous as all heck.
Well, we are rooting for your kid to do really well when the time comes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Back to you, Daryl.
All right, thank you both. And we have a fun way now, a little separation from the serious science, for you to participate in our mission today, and it's by signing up to be a planetary defender, just like Kelly. Here's a look at some of the people who sent us videos on how they got involved.
I'm a planetary defender. I love space, and my dog is also a planetary defender.
I am a planetary defender. Go dog!
I'm a planetary defender. Asam planetari existit.
Jo soc defensor planetari.
Cosmo e io siamo difensori planetari. Cosmo and I are planetary defenders.
We're planetary defenders! I'm a planetary defender. Yeah!
Love the kid with the rocket engines.
That was great.
Yeah. If you would like to participate in being a planetary defender, there's a website. We're going to put it up on the screen. It's at dart.jhupapl.edu/planetary-defender. Again, that's dart.jhupapl.edu/planetary-defender. And there's a 5-question quiz, and then if you do well, you'll receive a digital certificate so you can share it on social media or, hang it on your wall. So guess what? Daryl and Kelly took the quiz.
We did.
And we have our certificate. Look at that. Oh, yeah. I am officially declared a planetary defender on NASA's double asteroid redirection test.
I am proud of you, Daryl.
Thank you, Kelly. That means a lot. So, you took the quiz, right? And you passed. I'm glad to hear.
That was kind of funny because I started working my way through the quiz, and I knew what the answer to the question was, but I wanted to make sure that I knew what they thought the answer to the question was, so I clicked on a hint, and a video of me popped up. So, and by the way, our planetary defense officer, Lindley Johnson, he also took it and he passed.
That is great to hear. That is great to hear. I feel like I needed a hint. Oh, there's me. Tell me what's up. All right, thank you so much. Well, we have DART is scheduled to make an impact with its target asteroid in the fall of 2022. After that happens, scientists and astronomers around the world will work to verify if the redirection tests work. Let's go back out to Raquel Villanueva for more on this. Raquel?
Thanks, Daryl. I'm here with DART coordination lead Nancy Chabot to find out what is next. Thanks for joining us, Nancy.
Oh, thanks for having me. Great launch, huh?
It's beautiful. So what is the first thing your team will do after impact?
We will be doing so much. I mean, first thing will be the Draco images that are streaming back 1 per second. And this is the first time we get to see what this asteroid looks like. And so I guarantee the team at APL is going to have these images up on the big screen, seeing what the shape is, seeing what the geology is, seeing where we actually hit. You know, but then there's more. There's LichioCube, and those images are actually going to take a few days or weeks to come back, and they're going to show us the ejecta from the collision. And the telescopes are going to get right to work too here on the Earth. They're going to be turning their gaze and trying to figure out how much we actually deflected this asteroid. And that's going to go on for months. And then we've got a bunch of people with state-of-the-art models who are going to model the impact, model the ejecta, model the dynamics, and they're going to use the inputs from the images and the observations and all come together. It's going to be a really, really busy time.
Sounds like it. And can you tell me why the impact, the timing of the impact is important?
Yeah, it's really interesting because September 2022 is the perfect time to do this. So Didymos and the Earth, they both go around the sun, right? But it actually takes about a little over 2 years for Didymos. So sometimes the Earth and Didymos are on like the opposite sides of the sun and really far away from each other. But in September 2022, it's actually minimized. They're going to be the closest that they are for 40 years. And that's going to let the telescopes here on the Earth get the best data possible of how much we deflected this asteroid.
Wow. And scientists around the world, will they be able to confirm your results?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually super happy we've got scientists around the world on the DART team. And so this is an international team for an international issue, right? Like planetary defense is our whole planet. We're all on it together. And that's there. We've got obviously the LichioCube contributed by the Italian Space Agency. We're also really working closely with the European Space Agency's Hera mission, which is going to rendezvous with the Didymos system in 2026. And it's going to be able to see the crater, get the mass. And it's really exciting because, you know, DART is just the start, and then Hera will get there, and these two missions combined will show us even more than anyone could do on their own. And it's just really a great example of international collaboration for this international issue.
It really is. And what was it like seeing the launch today?
It was really spectacular. I didn't really know what to expect so much, but then when you just saw it like light up through the sky and sort of change the things, and everybody erupts in the cheers, it's really real, you know, and but in some ways this is just getting DART onto this next phase. I'm looking forward to these 10 months and then the collision and then everything I just described starts, and we've got so much to look forward to.
Busy time ahead. Thank you so much for joining us, Nancy.
Thank you. This is great.
Back to you, Daryl.
All right, and as she mentioned, when DART impacts the asteroid, the spacecraft and the onboard camera will be completely destroyed. But we will see DART's last maneuver thanks to an Italian CubeSat that will jettison from DART 10 days before impact. For more on this, we are joined by Simone Parata of the Italian Space Agency. And we're going to talk about LichioCube, which stands for Light Italian CubeSat for Imaging Asteroids. So how did this idea for a DART CubeSat actually come about?
Thank you. So the idea of CubeSat came about in the time frame of 2017. At the time, the Italian Space Agency was already running a project that is called Argo Moon, and is a similar CubeSat that will fly on the Artemis 1 mission. So this CubeSat will provide important information and images of the launcher. So we thought, why don't we propose a similar CubeSat that will support the DART mission? Anyway, we were somehow, contacted by NASA, and then the idea came in this way, and we started this new challenging project, and we are very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's like DART throwing out a cell phone to take a selfie right before it rams into an asteroid.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's okay. We still kind of sometimes refer to it as a selfie sat, but or seriously, what can you tell us more about LichioCube's scientific objectives?
All right. We will support DART. We are kind of witness of the immediate effect of the impact, because later on, the effect of the impact, will be measured from the Earth by telescopes, but we will provide unique images. Yeah, this is LichioCube. Has been just deployed from DART. So while DART is targeting and then impacting the asteroids, we will maneuver in a way that will allow us to pass in a safe distance, so not to be impacted by ejectas, but at the proper distance to have a good resolution of our images.
That is super cool.
Yeah, so the plumes is important information, and we will also provide information on the other side of the asteroid that is not visible by DART, that is coming from just one direction. So can I use a small model that is...
Sure. What do you have?
I have with me just a small toy that my daughter did with the Lego
That
bricks.
looks like Legos.
Yes, they are Legos. But in particular, they are the Legos that I received when I was a kid.
Oh,
They were
wow.
stored for 30 years, and now my daughter she's using.
30-year-old Legos repurposed on
Right.
the show today.
You
I
can
love
see
it.
from the color.
Yeah.
They're not properly white. Anyway, while LiCHA-Cube is approaching the scene, it's maneuvering, and the velocity is an issue because DART is intentionally very fast against the asteroid. And we have limited resources on board as a CubeSat, so we cannot modify our velocity so much. So we'll be very fast while we are approaching the scene.
Okay.
And we will try to be out of the plane, have a good illumination of the scene, and then we will look at the plume that will be generated, and we will maneuver, change the attitude in order to image the other side of the asteroid.
That's fantastic. Not just getting the impact, but the other side.
Yeah.
And we showed that with Legos. It's my favorite part.
Well, and this is great with the Legos. Using that, can you tell us what are the main components of LiCHA-Cube and how do they work?
Sure, LiCHA-Cube is a 6U CubeSat in size, and it's a complete spacecraft. You can see it's equipped with all subsystems. The core is made by the two instruments, the two cameras. One is with a narrow field of view, and the other has a wider field of view. So they have complementary functions in the action.
And real quickly, how close will LiCHA-Cube come to the asteroid?
Well, we had a trade-off on this decision, and in the end, the proper distance at the closest approach will be around 55 kilometers. That is again a safe distance, but it's good enough to have a resolution on the surface of about 1 meter per pixel. That will allow us to have good information on also on the morphology of the surface, maybe the crater. The crater is not completely sure that we can image because the plume can cover it. When we need the proper time to allow the plume to be developed enough. So while we are having our flyby, we can have a complete modeling of how the materials will be released.
That's fantastic. Simone Parada from the Italian Space Agency. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for bringing your Legos. That was great.
It is like a kind of lucky charm for us, and my daughter wants this back, so I'll take it back to Italy.
All right, let's check in with Maria and Denton to find out more about spacecraft separation, guys.
All right, thanks, Daryl and Kelly. It was a very interesting conversation. We are about 45 seconds or so from spacecraft separation when the Falcon 9 second stage and DART will be over the Indian Ocean near Madagascar. And then the job of the Falcon 9 rocket will be officially complete for this mission.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the job of Falcon 9 was to get DART on its way to the Didymos system. At this point, we've gotten enough velocity, enough speed to send DART off towards the Didymos system. And right now, we're in range of the ground station, so we can get all the data from, and so we can make sure we can actually capture the separation
confirmed.
And we just heard the call out for spacecraft separation. You can see the video of the DART spacecraft heading on its way to the Didymos system.
What a spectacular view of DART.
Yep.
Just floating away from the Falcon 9 second stage.
And you can see the sun off to the side there as DART drifts away from the Falcon 9 second stage.
And so this officially begins almost a year of cruise for the DART spacecraft flying through on its way to the Didymos system. And at the time that it impacts Dimorphos in late September 2022 is what we expect, the Didymos system will be within 11 million kilometers of Earth. Again, to remind folks, this system does not pose any kind of threat to Earth. This is purely a test. And so DART, when it approaches, will smash into Dimorphos, the small moonlet of Didymos, at 15,000 miles per hour. Just astonishing rate of speed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the next thing that we have to get through, obviously, spacecraft separation is a huge milestone, but we're not out of the woods yet. We still have to get acquisition of signal from the DART spacecraft, and that takes a little bit more time, right, Dutton?
Yeah, and at this point, the launch vehicle has done its job, and we just want to make sure we basically hear from the DART spacecraft to make sure it's doing well. And if you think about it, it's kind of like getting off of a roller coaster, right? You know, you step off the roller coaster, you know, you kind of steady yourself. You want to check your pockets, make sure you didn't lose anything along the way, make sure you're okay. And that's basically what we're looking for from the DART spacecraft once it gets that acquisition of signal, because it's going to kind of go through its self-checks, make sure everything's okay, and then it's going to send word back to home, basically saying, hey, I'm doing all right. And that's what we're looking for right now. And that's, I mean, because if we don't get that, then it's kind of all for nothing, right? You want to make sure that the spacecraft is doing well after it's gone, you know, separated away from the launch vehicle.
And you've got ground stations all over the planet that are looking for this signal from DART, and we'll be trying to start picking that up very soon.
Right, and then sometimes it's not an exact, you know, it's not exact, because sometimes the timing may vary once you get in range of certain ground stations. You know, there could be weather kind of impacting that signal strength, etc. So there are the various factors that come into play. So, but we're expecting to get it coming up in a few minutes, but hopefully we'll get that so we can get good word that DART is doing well.
Okay, and so there's a range that we're expecting. Acquisition of signal could be as early as around T plus an hour and 7 minutes, so that's 9 or so minutes from now. It could be as late as T plus 1 hour 34 minutes. Like you said, it's not an exact science. We'll know when it happens, and we'll give confirmation as soon as we hear it. But for now, we're going to keep an ear on things. And Daryl and Kelly, we will send it back to you.
All right, Maria and Denton, thank you so much. What beautiful imagery seeing that DART spacecraft sailing off. Well, DART will be destroyed after it smashes into its target asteroid. But years from now, a new spacecraft will follow DART's path to the same double asteroid. Joining us now is Ian Carnelli, the European Space Agency's project manager for Hera. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, tell me a little bit about what Hera does and how it got its name.
All right, so Hera will be launched in October 2024. So a few years out. It's currently now in integration. And we'll launch it from Kourou and arrive at Didymos in 2026, around Christmas Day. And our primary purpose is really to complete the investigation, to understand what has happened during and after the DART impact, so understand the dynamics, the geology, what the asteroid is made of. And the name is quite funny. Actually, we had an evening with the scientists, and we were thinking about names, and I only had a constraint from my boss saying we don't want acronyms for once. So the idea...
Yeah, and so it was a perfect choice, but it's because there are two aspects of this, right? What is this?
Exactly. So these are the CubeSats. So here we'll bring with it two CubeSats, one called Milani, after actually the scientists who brought up the name of the mission and the concept, and Juventus. So the two CubeSats will perform scientific investigations. Here we're seeing the booms deploying from Juventus. That's actually a low-frequency radar. What it does is actually like a X-ray. We'll want to understand what is the internal structure of the asteroid, understand if there are voids or if it's a monolithic rock.
How about that?
Yeah, so imagine...
Literally going into the crater that DART created?
Exactly, that's the purpose. And so Hera, it comes after the goddess, the Greek goddess of marriage. And the idea being that despite being hit by DART, the two asteroids will stay together. So that was kind of the history behind the name.
I love it.
Well, yeah, and we just got DART off the planet. And so why is it important now to, a few years later for Hera to go and then follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are so excited about DART. It was an awesome launch. And we're all expecting beautiful science data to come next year. But then the purpose of Hera is really to complete the experiment, to get close and personal, and get all of the science data that we need to actually calibrate our numerical impact codes, meaning that we can reproduce on our computer simulations exactly what happened during the DART impact. And that will allow us in the future to be able to design a planetary defense mission if we need to on another object. So we will have all of the models calibrated so that we can use it on another asteroid.
All right, Ian Corneli, fascinating stuff and a
Yeah.
great mission to follow up on this DART mission. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Well, now we are getting to the big moment where we're going to try to acquire a signal from the DART spacecraft. And so let's take a look inside at the Mission Operations Center in the Johns Hopkins University's Applied Physics Laboratory. If we have that, that's where the real work is going to start being done in terms of acquiring that signal. And in just a few minutes, we're expecting that DART team to do just that, acquire the signal. But as Marie and Denton mentioned, it's not an exact science. You know, we got to go through some stations to make sure we acquire that signal and get it in there. But you're pretty familiar, Kelly, with the people who are going to be in that room waiting for this signal to come in.
Well, the Planetary Defense Coordination Office and the Planetary Science Division have been working with the Applied Physics Lab and with the co-investigators at other institutions for a long time on this. And yes, it's a mission, it's a task. People have their jobs that they need to do, but I mean, these are individuals who are really passionate about what they're doing, and so they're really taking this to heart. And I'm sure they're still on pins and needles as they work their way through this part of the mission.
Speaking of pins and needles, there we see the room there, as you can see at the lower bottom of your screen, awaiting DART acquisition of signal, and that area right there is called the command pit at APL, and so those folks are patiently and intently listening for communication from DART to the ground. So while we await that, let's send it over to Marie and Denton, who are monitoring the launch team communications as we await acquisition of signal.
So right now, Daryl and Kelly, it's just a lot of waiting and listening. There's almost no chatter going on the loops. Everyone is just kind of waiting with bated breath. At this point, we're at T plus 1 hour, 4 minutes, and counting. And just in these it all kind of comes down to these final minutes. When are we going to get that signal? Yeah. Years of work. Some of the people in this room, probably if not all of them, have poured years of their life. This is their life's work into this mission. And so what's it like waiting for this confirmation?
Yeah, and so, you know, having been on the launch vehicle side and sitting on console and working this, you know what, you've been working years to kind of get to this point. And as you mentioned, the spacecraft team has been dedicate most of their careers or, you know, their life's work to the spacecraft. So, you know, getting through the launch, you know, you're like, great, we had a great launch, everything went successful, but you want to make sure you get that confirmation from the spacecraft. So it's a little excitement that we got through the launch, but it's a little nervousness as we wait. Okay, we want to make sure the spacecraft is doing okay. And so it's a mixture of excitement and nervousness at the same time.
Yeah, and, you know, you mentioned nervousness, and okay, we see some clapping. We haven't heard anything, so trying to see if we can find out if...
So we're waiting to get positive confirmation that we've actually have got signal from the DART spacecraft. So we're just waiting to get word.